Salutations. Welcome to my masterclass on joining an insurance agency. The purpose of this training is very specific. It is to help you become a profitable and successful agent while avoiding the many pitfalls and problems that come along with being an agent, which you may not be aware of, but by the end of this very deep dive training, you will. And the way we're going to do it is a little unusual compared to some of the other content that I've had out there in the past that you probably have seen. We're going to kind of compile what I believe are the most common questions. And there's a lot, but a lot of them keep coming up about commissions, how to pick a good agency, how do I know if the agency's got what is going to be considered a good deal for me? And so, therefore, this is the outcome of it. This is going to be a deep dive on 45 questions that are commonly asked about joining an insurance agency. So sit back, take notes. This will be recorded. You can, of course, watch it at a later date. But the purpose of this really is just to answer any of all of your questions. For those of you who are watching live, what I would highly recommend is to throw your questions in the chat. I will get to them eventually. As by default, we're answering a bunch of questions. But if you got any that were not brought up or you want me to kind of clarify anything, feel free to do so by throwing those chat questions below. I will monitor that pretty closely. So some points to start on here, getting started. First of all, this training, of course, is for people who are brand new to the industry. Maybe you're thinking about selling insurance or you're already starting the licensing process or maybe already licensed. This is perfect training for you. You see, getting the license is one aspect of your journey as an insurance agent, which tends to be the least confusing. Maybe surprising if you're testing right now on it, but the truth is that everything else that comes after that carries a ton of risk and can be you can make big mistakes thinking you're doing the best job for yourself. So this is vital training. The questions that you may not even know to ask, you will by the end of this, will provide you a huge foundation in the longevity of your business. Of course, this is for newly licensed agents that are comparing agencies. Again, the typical approach is that you think you're going to get a job and you're going to apply and you're going to put on your best behavior, right? And you should either way, but there's an inversion of this business. As you'll find out, there's a big multi-level marketing component in many of the insurance niches out there, and they're actually working hard to get you in there, which is kind of the opposite of most companies. So you need to be very careful about anybody that's too enthusiastic about getting you into their job. So you have to, again, kind of be a cynic a little bit. We'll go into more detail about that. A lot of the questions will cover that. Also, we'll talk about if you are an agent looking to switch agencies. Maybe you agree with everything I've talked about up to this point. You're like, yeah, it's, what I thought I was getting, I ain't getting. And, you're looking for a different opportunity and know what questions to ask the second, third, or beyond time around. This training will definitely give you a lot of firepower to avoid making the same mistakes again. If you're part-time or full-time, this is a really good training for you too as well. Regardless if you're thinking about doing already one or the other, lots of talk about that will be had as well. Anyone who wants an objective breakdown of how agencies actually work, the goal of this at the end of this, which this should be a lengthier video because there's so much to cover, is you should have a really good idea of how agencies actually work versus how they're presented to you. Okay. What you're seeing when you are solicited to join their agency is their best foot forward. And most agencies are run by the best salespeople. But what you actually get dramatically different. My job is to inform you of what the underbelly looks like so that you can trust but cut the cars. So you can see the rainbows and sunshine, but also see what it actually may look like. And then how to kind of find out what the truth is between both sides. Um, of course, you're going to learn how to evaluate any agency with confidence. You'll know what questions to ask, how to separate hype from reality. There's a lot of hype in this business. Don't buy it. There's a lot of BS too. You'll know how to balance both. One of the biggest problems I see that motivated the creation of this mega FAQ is that there's just a lot of people who blow through a lot of their private savings in a desperate attempt to kickstart a career, and they did it wrong from the beginning, and it was not their fault. It was because the MLM they joined really just screwed them, to be honest with you. So we're going to talk about, again, how to avoid these expensive career mistakes that may cost you $5, $10, $20,000 or more. And I'm not even joking. It's a very common occurrence, and you don't want to be a statistic. We'll help you avoid that. You'll know what questions to ask. you'll recognize the agencies worth joining. Agencies aren't a scam. There are some that are, there are some that aren't. And you just need to know, based off of the information, how to evaluate different opportunities. Again, one of my objectives is being able to help you do just that, and understand what leads to long term success. My goal for you, hopefully for yourself, is you want to get into this because you're looking for a different career opportunity. Maybe you're looking to add in a side hustle or a secondary income to eventually scale into a full income producing job or business opportunity. Will help you understand what long term success looks like and how it relates to joining an agency. Because, man, you can have everything you want out of your career and have total clarity. But if you mess up the agency side, very, very big problem and mistakes could happen. And make the right decision before signing any contract. Sometimes contractually, if you don't slow down and read what's in it, you can get pinned against the wall legally in a way that's going to prevent or slow down your career. Hey, Mar, thanks for being here. Appreciate you, man. So, why listen to me? Of course, I'll give you a couple of reasons why. First of all, my name is Dave Duford, by the way. I run Dig Agency. I run my own agency, but I've been on YouTube providing helpful content since 2014. And I actually started in the business out of desperation in 2011 while running a full time personal training business that was going down the tubes, and got into the business, made all the mistakes, failed out in my first year, came back, promised I would never fail out again. And since then, did a ton of business personally. I've written over 1,500 policies myself. Eventually built Dig Agency starting in 2013, scaled it to over 6,000 agents. We've had more than 30,000 insurance policies written and more than $30 million in personal and insurance production combined, probably more than that now. And on YouTube alone, 10 plus years, a decade of YouTube video creation experience with more than 7.5 million views. And then I've actually written 4 best-selling books on Amazon. If you put in David DeFord, you'll find them. They're great books to prime your career and get started. Why should all this matter? It's because you want to get into this business and have kind of the wise mentor helping you along. Okay. This is a business that is deceptively difficult. And this is a business where people will deceive you. And so my job as being in this business and providing, I think like 3 to 4,000 videos now, no cost, is to continue that effort to help people stay in this business. Because the bottom line, while there's all these scams and problem issues in the insurance business that you'll find out if you don't know already, it is a great business if done correctly and if you avoid the costly mistakes that so many others do. And the fact that you're here watching this, let me tell you, is a huge step forward because most people just jump in, they hear what sounds good, they believe it, and then they fail out. 90% of people fail out. I want to help you avoid becoming a statistic. Okay. So, my promise to you, no recruiting hype. I will talk a little bit about what we do just very briefly so you know where to find me if you're interested in joining the agency. There's absolutely no pressure to join my agency, so don't worry about that. Again, I'm going to give you honest answers. Even if you don't like it, I don't care. I'm going to tell you the truth because that's what you deserve. So expect that. I'll tell you what actually matters and what doesn't. Again, there's a lot of things that people say matter that don't. I'll help you differentiate between what the truth is and what isn't. And then my goal is to help you choose the right agency, even if it isn't mine. One of the key things, the takeaways that I'll probably hit on a bunch of times in this broadcast is that survival is the critical goal in your first year in this business. Okay. People don't really thrive in the insurance business until a couple of years where they made the mistakes or learned to avoid them. And so we want to hasten that curve of survival quickly and to empower you with the knowledge and capabilities so that you can avoid the mistakes and do well, because the insurance business, no matter what you sell, if done right, can provide a great income and just, if not more importantly, autonomy, freedom to live the life you want without having to worry about bosses breathing down your back and actually help people with something that they need. Okay. So with that said, we're going to jump right into the first batch of questions. I got a couple of presentations here and different slides. So let's begin. Again, if you guys got questions in the chat, excuse me, feel free to throw them in there and we will begin. Okay. So of course, got to start with the most important question. Question one is selling insurance a good career? And the truth is, of course, yes, it is, but it's only good for the right type of person. A common issue that we see in this business with the heads of these agencies is they say it's like Bob Ross, everybody can be a painter. I don't know if that's true, Bob, But if you're under 30, probably have no idea what I'm talking about, by the way. But there's other agency owners who will say, "Hey, anybody can sell insurance," and that's just not true. It's not. It takes a combination of personal innate character traits as well as a level of self discipline. And so, what I'm going to try to do is help you figure out: do you have those traits, and do you have those things? And to some extent, you can, of course, work on everything here. It's just that it's somewhat of a lie to suggest that, well, everybody can do it. Um, so hopefully that makes sense. So let me tell you some reasons why people love to sell insurance, just to give you some reasons why I do it, others do it, because it is great. First of all, you can work remotely or face to face. It's totally an option. So it used to be traditionally you could only sell in person. But now there are many avenues to sell remotely, either in a call center or from home. Like, for example, my company, the Big Agency, you can sell remotely from the comfort of your home, totally fine. And there's many agencies that offer the same thing. So if you're looking for flexibility, if you like this idea of like travel and work, it's definitely something that you can do. Or if you just want to work your local community, the traditional way, insurance can facilitate it. Like I said previously, helping people with something they actually need. So you're not selling vacuums or some sort of useless consumer good that will be just disposed of. You're selling peace of mind. So a lot of people have kind of an aversion to selling. They think it's like icky, but it's not, because what you're actually doing is providing something that in the time of need, if somebody dies, if they have a car wreck, their house burns down, that the insurance comes in, fulfills a promise, and protects a family's financial future. Okay. And because you did the work to get that person to believe and commit, you've helped them in ways that others can't. Again, being in the life insurance business, I've seen people die and they had coverage that if I didn't show up and help them, they wouldn't have had it. And there are families protected and still together and emotionally sound to the best that they can be after a loss of a loved one, without the added financial pressure, because I showed up. And you can partake in that. And the cool thing about selling that is feel good doing it. It's, again, it doesn't have this like emptiness that selling a bunch of random crap, does. So if you are looking for meaning, then selling insurance can definitely provide it, I think. Low startup costs compared to many businesses. Will eventually answer questions about costs, but the nice thing about selling insurance is that you don't have to buy a bunch of parts, run it through a factory, and then have the finished product and then find a customer. The cost of goods sold is virtually nothing. If you find a client, or you do, like, say, referral marketing, somebody refers somebody to you, you write the policy and there's no cost to acquire that client. And then likewise with licensing, it's very cheap to get licensed, a couple $100, and then you're off to the races. So it's a very accessible business model across the nation. Prices are similar to get started. And again, there are other costs that we'll cover as well, but just getting started is way easier than, say, a restaurant, which can take a tremendous amount of money just to get out the door. Uncapped earning potential. There are people in this business who make nothing. There are people in this business that make 5 figures, 6 figures, 7 figures, even 8 figures. I think the biggest, I have a friend in the business who just exited. He sold his agency, and he sold it, I want to say, in the neighborhood of 40 to $50 million. I don't know the exact number, but it was an mid 8 figure sales deal that 15 years ago, he was just getting started, just a cop. And he started selling, and then he just grew his business, found his niche, and really dived into it. And he's now in his late 40s, early 50s. I mean, he has more money, he knows what to do, right? And that's an extreme case. Not everybody's going to make that much money, but there are plenty of people in this business that make 6 figures. But more importantly, you're not held back by promotions or hoping to please the boss to get moved up in life. It really comes down to what you can put forward, the amount of work you can put in, and how creative you can come with what it is that you're doing. So if you like the idea of not being held back because of tenure or something out of your control, insurance provides it, man. Like, I used to work at a company called Aramark, and I did sales, and I looked and saw guys that would move up to eventually making 6 figures, but it would take a decade plus. I'm like, that's too long. I want to make that sooner than that, maybe not tomorrow, but I want to move according to my capabilities. And being insurance is like that. It's a great opportunity. It's high demand. Look, the nice thing about insurance relative to other business, it's an old, boring business model. Okay. So when you sell insurance, you're not, say, selling something that is new and sexy and everybody wants to sell it or buy it. It's been around for hundreds of years. Everybody kind of has a general sense of what insurance is, maybe not specifically, but generally. But the nice thing about it is, even with technological changes, trend changes, and perspectives, and what people think they need and they want to buy, insurance plays an important component in the modern civilized world. You have to insure things like your car. In many states, it's a state mandate. Everybody starts Medicare, and then they need a Medicare Advantage plan or a Medicare supplement plan to enhance their benefits. And everybody's going to die, so most people have a bill when they die. So they need life insurance on some level, right? If they die prematurely, maybe to replace income. If they die of older age, maybe to pay for the funeral expenses. But here's the point. Notice how I basically covered every single person on the face of America, much less the planet, but specifically America here. And on top of that, growing population base, an aging population that will be more in line to buying products associated where we focus on in the final expense world. The point is, it's huge demand, and it's not going to slow down, and unlikely AI is not going to entirely replace it. We'll talk more about that a little bit later, but it is something that if you're good at this and you find a niche and you really dive into it, then you can carve out an income and you can carve out a way to help a lot of people. Flexible schedule supports part-time or full-time. So you can start in this business part-time or full-time. I started part-time when I got started and had my personal training gym back in 2011. I wanted to test the waters, but not fully commit. And I was able to do that successfully, at least for the first 6 months before I went full-time, and then before I failed out later and came back. But needless to say, part-time absolutely works. If you need to only work nights, weekends, early mornings. If you're in California, you can remotely call into Tennessee or North Carolina at 6 in the morning your time because it's 9 over here. There's a ton of flexibility. And so if you're looking for an opportunity to make an additional income without quitting your job, man, insurance is a great place to start. And the cool thing is you can scale up from there. Potential for renewal passive income. This is huge, especially the mid range to long range of your career is creating an income that streams in regardless if you work or not. Some products pay more passive. So I wouldn't say it's passive, kind of that's the idea, but it's some level of passive income. You still have to work to keep the client in order to get paid, but you do get a renewal income without necessarily putting in as much work as you did on the front end. And that stacks over time. And even if you don't work, say that day, you're going to get paid something. That's a nice thing. Okay. So you do see that with products like Medicare, car insurance, home insurance, to some small extent, final expense, but really more with your health insurance and car insurance products. And it's a boring, predictable business. Hinted at that earlier. You should like boring. You should like predictable because that means there is a carved out process that has been proven by many others. Sure, it's not the forefront of whatever new technology or whatever new product is being sold, but that's okay. Let other people figure out how to do that, work it, sell it, the economics behind it. You can sell insurance knowing that people have been doing technically the same thing for 5 years to 50 to 100 years. And that level of predictability is actually a really good bonus and an asset, although it can be boring at times, I would admittedly, unless you like people, because people are always different and that makes it fun. But being it's just predictable is a definite bonus and something you want to appreciate. Okay. Whoops. Can't miss that slide. When selling insurance is not a good career opportunity. So let's talk a little bit about this. I don't know why my spotlight's not working here. So first of all, if you need a guaranteed paycheck, so this is kind of the brutally honest stuff that I wanted to talk to you about because you don't want to waste a bunch of time. And you may be thinking, well, I want to join an agency. Why, why are we talking about the industry as a whole? Because you need to consider this stuff too in your search for the right appropriate agent. So this is kind of priming the pump. And then a lot of the stuff about agency selection will make more sense then. So if you need a guaranteed paycheck, unless you can find a company that will pay you a base plus bonus, this probably isn't a good business model. Okay. Most of the insurance business, especially on the life insurance side, less so in the property casualty world, meaning car insurance, State Farm, Allstate, but more on the life insurance side is straight commission. Okay. And if you're in a position in your life where you need guaranteed income and the idea of waking up unemployed, meaning you got to go find someone to sell to, is scary, it might not be smart at all to do it full time. You may want to consider part time. You may not want to do it at all, but then redirect your energy towards business models in insurance that support an hourly income. Okay. Granted, if you're good at this business, if paying hourly, you'll get paid a lot less. But again, consider the reality of your economic situation. If you can't stand or withstand straight commission sales, where everything you make is based off of what you sell, this may not be for you because it's psychologically challenging if you've never been on a straight commission before in a business or some other product. If you don't like asking people to buy or for their money, this business is not for you. Get comfortable asking total strangers 30 minutes ago to make a full lifetime commitment to buying life insurance. Like, you have to do that. I don't have a hang up for it. Some people do, but you're going to have to ask people to do things. It's not pushy when you follow a sales process that educates the client, that excites them about your opportunity and how it's unique and special and solves their problems. And then it's very easy to ask for their commitment. So one of the things is if you're kind of on the edge of this, the truth is that it actually isn't that bad once you follow a process that positions yourself and your product well, and people want to give you their money. Like, they see there's a problem, they want to hand it over. So there's going to be some mindset changes. But if you're just like totally stuck on, I don't want to, it's rude to ask for money, don't do it. It's going to be very difficult for you. If you're uncomfortable talking to strangers, again, this is business is not for you. You have to talk to people, whether it's on the phone or in person. You have to look them in the eye, talk to them, listen to them, get to know them, befriend them. If you don't like that idea, if that scares the pants off you, again, don't do it. The reality, though, it scares everybody a little bit, but you just do it anyway. And what you find very quickly is it's not really that hard. Most people are friendly, cordial, not everybody, but the thing you had in your mind about how hard this is going to be actually never really pans out. That's true for a lot of these different hangups people have. If you're not proficient without supervision, don't do this job, because, like, for example, in my company, everybody works remotely. I'm not forcing them to come on YouTube or Zoom and watching them and babysitting them. I don't want a business like that. Most people don't want to be treated like that. But you've got to have the self motivation to go work, even when things kind of suck, right? It's raining outside. You want to get rained on. You got to go knock on doors or talk to prospects. You got to do it anyway, right? You've had a couple of bad days. You're beaten up emotionally. You still have to go do it. Okay. So, and you got to be able to do this and find the motivation within without somebody knocking down your door or getting on your case. Okay. If you cannot handle daily rejection, don't do this. Sales is about rejection management and reframing what rejection means. In short, it's not really rejecting you, it's rejecting the product. But if you can't handle and you feel like you're crushed if someone says no, and you can't manage that, like, I mean, that's kind of a daily occurrence. So maybe you shouldn't do this. And last but not least, you joined the wrong agency. Okay. So there's a lot of people who quit this business that have the capability to be successful, but they join and their perception is based off of some Kool-Aid drinking pyramid scheme. And they leave thinking that the insurance business is a scam. I can't blame them. But again, the idea is that if you join the wrong agency, this business isn't good, because what you think you're getting is entirely something different and benefits in a way that not you, but benefits somebody else, and not the client and not you. And you want to be very mindful, again, with this, especially with the training we're doing today, to learn what to avoid and how to still do this successfully without the hangups that, again, are so common. So who usually succeeds in the insurance business? Self-motivated people. I never had anybody, my wife, my dad, my mom, yell at me for working too much, okay, or working too little. Working too much, yeah, my spouse does. And but other than that, I was self-motivated. I didn't want to be poor. I wanted to make money. I wanted to be successful. That inherently existed in me. And people who have that, man, again, it's a blank slate in this business. Nobody cares about your tenure, where you're from, who your family is, how many A's you got in high school, if you pass, like, none of that matters. And if you're self-motivated and you can help people and you can work hard, it's a great benefit that a lot of people, frankly, don't have. If you're competitive, competitiveness does help. If you like being around other people who want to strive and achieve, and that pushes you to do the same, as long as you get with an agency that does that, that is a very beneficial thing. Now, I'm personally funny as an agent. I'm not that competitive. I'm more like self-competitive. I kind of beat myself up personally. So it's like I never was super competitive. I was more like, what can I do better? How can I beat my goals, as opposed to comparing myself to others, even though I try to do that, but I feel bad about myself. So you don't have to be like super type A competitive. You can be a little more introversion competitive like me. How can I get better How can I beat myself from the prior week in some form or fashion? But again, the same competitive principle in nature is very important, and I think it does help. Good communicators. So, a pro tip: good communication isn't about you talking, it's about you listening and asking the right questions. So, if you're good at listening, if you let people take the stage and talk 80% of the time, if you make good eye contact, and you reassure them if you can't see them, you're talking over the phone. Uh-huh. Yeah, okay. Yeah. So what I'm hearing is this. You feedback what they tell you. These are all things that people they feel like they know you. You're a long lost friend. And people who like others buy from them. Okay. So good communicators do fantastic. Coachable. If you're coachable, you can take advice and you don't take it personally, you're going to thrive. There's a lot of people that if they're corrected, they think that we're like attacking their character, and we're not. We're attacking the mistakes they're making, which is not as separate from their character. We're trying to get them into the next level of understanding and execution. But if you take everything personally, have a really like weak ego, and you can't like shut the ego down long enough to just humble yourself to get better, don't do this business. Okay. Consistent workers goes back with self motivated people. If you can put in time consistently, this is a huge longer term differentiator. I'm a good agent. I'm not as great as some of my agents are. I'm not a bad agent either, but where I differentiated in my success is I worked consistent day in, week in, month out, year in. And when you do that long enough, you separate yourself from the pack so far that you're making more money, you're hitting your goals way better than the others that started about the same time as you. So, long story short, show up, do the work, and consistently do it over years, man. Huge, huge separation. Long term thinkers. Uh, Definitely, you don't want to think too long term in the sense of, um, oh, I don't know, what am I going to do 20 years from now? You do want some short-term goals and hit those goals. But you do want to understand that okay, the first 90 days isn't about making the most amount of money possible. It's about learning from my mistakes as optimal as possible. Then the second 90 days is about scaling, getting better, pushing for more activity based off of the good foundation that I built in the first 90 days on the job. Does that make sense? So again, thinking kind of in stages where you're at, what your next move is. Like I do that. I've done that very well. It's part of my success. And the agents who do very well think of that too as well. They're not shooting from the hip day to day. Not a good thing at all. People who genuinely enjoy helping clients. If you like people, if you like helping people, you like learning about them, you're curious about what they do and why they do what they do. I am. It's a fun job and it's an enjoyable and successful experience. Okay. So, some common new agent misconceptions of mistakes: expecting overnight success. This is a get rich slow business. Okay. When you join the agency, no matter what it is, hopefully it's the best one you could find that meets all your criteria. Don't think that, oh, now I'm going to make boatloads of money. No, you're going to learn, you're going to apply, you're going to learn from your attempts, you're going to get better, you're going to go back in this feedback loop, slowly improving. And then as those improvements go through, you start to make more money. And it's not linear. Sometimes it takes more time to show the results than the effort that puts in. There's a common thing that said is that, and I learned this and I realized about 5 years into this business, heard it for years, is that you have to, if you want to be something in life successful, you have to pay the price in advance of being successful well in advance. You have to pay the price in advance. That means you've got to do this hard stuff and not necessarily see anything like materially from it. Because what's happening, I can see this now looking back 15 plus years, is that all the while in my first couple of years, I was developing my sales skills, my understanding of human behavior, of the business, the ups and the downs. And in the moment, it's frustrating, but then it served me later on when I trained others. I could teach them things. I could teach you guys on YouTube. So it's a get rich slow business. I see most people hitting their best income years 5 to 10 years in. Okay. Could it have been sped up? For sure. But most of us have to screw up a couple of times, a number of times before we learn our lessons. And that's part of the deal. Okay. Quitting too early. Okay. Remember, your goal getting started with whatever agency you're joining is learning how to survive your first year. Okay. Again, make it have a goal to make as much money as possible, but understand survival of the fittest is the ones who survive and the ones that ultimately thrive. Okay, so don't get discouraged, don't quit too early, avoid having shiny object syndrome. because all businesses have goods things and all businesses have things that suck. Okay. So you're never going to escape adversity. Just get over it. The key thing is to lock into something that you can accept, not just the good. That's the easy part, but the bad part you can accept too. And if you can find a business like that that matches your criteria of acceptability, then you have a better chance of survival and thriving. Underestimate the learning curve is a common misconception. This business is deceptively difficult. Maybe you've listened to my sales call reviews or listening to sales calls or others as well. They make the business sound so easy. It makes like everybody just wants to throw their checkbook at you. But what you don't see is all the repetitions done in the background, the listening to their calls, critiquing it very closely, listening to other top producers' calls, practicing, and role playing, being frustrated early on. You never see this. You see the finished product, which is a pro who just like waves a magic wand and people just go into a trance and write a check for whatever they want. That's what you think. But it's not that easy. If it was, everybody be doing it and there wouldn't be any money in it. But the good news is that it is difficult, deceptively so. And instead of balking at that, you should embrace that because that separates those who do very well from the people who fail. Okay. So take your time. Understand this is a business that is going to take longer to learn and do very well at. Okay. And it's worth it. And then failing the budget from the startup period, that's huge. Okay. Big mistake a lot of people make is they think that just because they can get a license, they can sell. Okay. What you'll find out is that many business models require investment in leads, and a proper amount may cost you $3,000 to $10,000 a month. Okay. Not necessarily from the get go, 10,000, but maybe 3 to 5,000 very easily. And if you don't align what the financial requirements are, not just the leads, but the funding yourself and your own bills, and you get involved in this career, you can get washed out really quickly if you're not financially prepared. So we'll talk at length about financial preparation, judging an agency that's sound based on the financials of your financials, and looking for opportunities that best align with what you're looking for. Okay. So bottom line, insurance is not for everybody. I know some people have listened to this, probably gotten scared and are doubting themselves. First of all, doubt is normal, but it may not be for you. Okay. That's honest. And I'd rather you know that now, the pros and the cons, the good and the bad, than go all in and then have financial investment. And then now you're like, I should have never done this. That's the worst of the options. It offers one of the highest earning income opportunities available. Success comes from consistent activity over time. Choosing the right agency and committing to learning is critical, which is what this training is about today. And the opportunity is very real. Yes, there's opportunities that aren't so much an opportunity, but understand that to do anything successful is going to come down, even with the great agencies, your level and ability to commit to the process entirely and 110%. Okay. Very good. And that's our first question. Let's keep going. Question number 2. Can you really make 6 figures selling insurance? Well, I'm here to tell you professionally, personally, the answer, of course, is yes. 6-figure incomes are achievable without an advanced degree. There are a lot of agents I can think off the top of my head. One dude's got a GED, another worked in a factory, never got a college degree or advanced degree. That's what's cool about it. You don't need it to potentially make that kind of money. But like all things in life, success depends on sales activity and consistency of effort. So, newsflash, pro tip, 6 figures doesn't happen out of the gate for most people. It's something that is worked on and earned over time. Some people like me, it took me a couple of years. But strong training dramatically improves your odds. And so does following a system consistently. So kind of break this down a little bit further. So what determines your income, first of all? Number of appointments, closing percentage, lead quantity, quality, commission level, follow-up consistency, daily activity, agency coaching and support. These are all like soft and hard variables that make a difference in what your income is. Okay. With the biggest one being, I think, the work that you're going to do to find the best agency and the level of full-time all-in commitment. Could be part-time as well, but your level of full mental commitment through the process, through thick and thin. Okay. So what 6 figures actually looks like. So you may be wondering, well, how do you actually earn that from an economic standpoint? For most people out there who are getting started in this business, it's going to look like hundreds of small sales. Like, for example, final expense, you're making a sale that probably makes you, it depends on what you sell and how the system is set up, $250 to $750 per sale. And then if you do a quarter, do 100,000, then you need to do, I think, 400 at 250 and then like 150 to 200 at 750. So, hundreds of policies, not like one big policy. So it tends to be a volume based business where you're going to make your earnings. So consistent production really matters because in order to get hundreds of sales, you're going to have even more hundreds upon hundreds of presentations, which are then going to require hundreds upon hundreds of leads or prospects or however you're finding people that express an interest. So strong systems and routines are very important if you want to earn an income like this. You need to know how many presentations you're going to do. It's probably not a handful like 5. It's probably closer to 15 to 20 a week. If you're in person, probably double that over the phone. And you have to consistently hit that. You have to have a diligent consistency to ongoing improvement in sales skills. Again, I explained this to an agent earlier. Um, Sales is like you're in a boat with a bunch of holes in it. You have an approach, but as you get started, you're going to have a lot of weaknesses. And your goal in those first 100 presentations is figure out where the mistakes are and then fix them. So that's you proverbially plugging the hole in the boat. And eventually the boat just isn't taking on water. It's not sinking anymore. Okay. So again, be nice to yourself. Be open-minded to improving because in order to look for ways to improve your sales skills is the way to make serious money. And the last thing that's very important if you want to make a 6-figure income is reliable lead generation. Leads are people expressing interest in buying. They're not necessarily people who are buyers, they might buy, which depends on you, the timing in which you follow up with them, and your ability to persuade them to take action immediately. All right. And you need to have enough. In fact, you need to have more than enough leads in order to make a 6-figure income or better actually happen. The one thing that one sales saying that I picked up that I still use after many years is all sales woes stem from a lack of prospecting or stem from a lack of leads. Doesn't matter. Those are interchangeable. The idea being if you have sales problems, you're probably not doing enough lead generation. And so if you want a big income, you have to have a big lead commitment. Okay. So what holds agents back from earning this? Inconsistent prospecting. You're just not showing up, putting the effort in. Poor follow-up. Some type of business models like Medicare, you may sit and do a presentation with them a couple of months out before they turn 65 and they can't necessarily buy yet, or they're just not yet to the commitment phase. But if you don't stay in front of them, you may miss out on a sale you otherwise would have gotten. Weak lead sources, not enough leads. So if you're working leads that are low quality, maybe you bought into the idea of cheap leads, but then you got cheap quality leads, not just cheap price leads. That can be a problem. And certainly, if you're scared of investing in the leads or your program doesn't give you enough, it doesn't matter. You're just not going to see success either. Lack of coaching. Again, this is a big mistake a lot of new agents make. They think they could figure this stuff out for themselves. It's a small minority that has the capability, independent of a mentor or coach who's been there and done that, to learn this business. Okay. Quitting too early. Again, a lot of people just quit because it gets uncomfortable. I mean, I'm kind of glad that's the truth because it allows more opportunity for the person who is not a quitter. So in a sense, as a new agent, you should embrace the fact of not being a quitter because basically everybody else is going to be. And constantly changing strategies. Don't be the person with the shiny object syndrome. Don't be the person constantly looking around for the next thing to sell. It is a surefire way to fail the business. Realistic expectations. Wrapping this section up. As you get started with your new agency, year one is often a learning year. It's about survival. Confidence grows with experience. You still have to get started and fake confidence to begin with, but you'll gain actual confidence through repetitions of seeing and selling prospects. Income typically accelerates after mastering the basics. Fundamentals are really important in this business, just like in every sport. It's the same in sales. Long-term consistency beats short bursts of effort. Again, there's many of the agents in the life insurance graveyard of failed agents had fantastic months, but what they couldn't do is keep it up because of their own personal issues in many cases. So you don't want to be a one-shot effort person. You want to go steady Eddie consistently. And momentum compounds over time. So again, as you get started in this business, you get excited about an agency, don't slow down. Don't take a vacation before you start the new opportunity. Get right into it. Go all in. Be 100% committed. Makes a huge difference. So bottom line, 6 figures is realistic. Activity creates opportunity. Consistency creates income. Great talents outperform natural talent. Very, very true. Too many natural talents out there that just won't put the work in. And look, if you stay in the game long enough, you're going to improve. Survival is the critical element. Okay. So questions in chat. Need to prepare to spend like 10K a month in lead sales? Yes, you do. At a point to where you can confidently return the money. So I think that's a really good point you put in the chat, Score. I wouldn't say a new agent to start that way. A new agent should do something like invest in a free lead program, like mine. No shameless plug. Or start slower with purchase leads if they want to go that route, and then through success scale up. Again, you have to have a sense of money management getting started in the business if you're going to buy leads, because one bad week of a bunch of leads you can't afford can blow you out if you're not prepared. Okay. And good agents can have bad weeks for sure. All right. Can you sell insurance part-time? Question 3 here. The answer is yes, it absolutely can happen. And let me tell you why it works. First of all, part-time is great because one of the biggest risks in getting started selling insurance and joining an agency is giving up your guaranteed paycheck or an income that you know consistently you can earn. When you start part-time, you can still do your 9 to 5 with many opportunities, work long nights, work evenings, mornings even, or even Saturdays and Sundays on weekends. So part-time can work really well for if you like the idea of this opportunity, but you don't want to jump in all in right away. Also, lower financial pressure, kind of back to what we were talking about in the chat. Starting part-time doesn't require as significant enough investment into leads if you're buying leads as it would if you're full-time. So it's a way to test the waters without a full financial commitment. You can also learn sales at your own pace. So if you're not all in on a time basis and you're only part-time, it can slow the required learning curve down in order to mix that up. You can test whether insurance is right for you without quitting your job. So this is what I did when I first started. I started part-time in insurance. I had my personal training gym. I was making some money in the personal training gym. I was making enough that I didn't want to give it up. Okay. I was afraid because I built this business for 5 years and I want to walk away from money I knew I was going to make. So I started part-time in insurance and I said to myself, I'm going to give this 6 months and I'm going to see if I can make money, then scale it, and then ultimately replace it. And inside of this first 6 months, I successfully did that. But had I started full time, I don't think I would have done this business. Okay, so you want to make sure that if you're wanting to if you're not sure if it's right for you, this is where part time can be very useful. And then build your income gradually. So if you're in a position where you're earning an income with a job and you want to join an agency and work part time and make extra money, this is absolutely a business model that can help. So how successful part-time agents make it work? So first of all, work evenings or weekends. Also protect dedicated selling hours. So don't treat it like a hobby, like actually schedule in. I'm working, for me, what I would do is I would schedule Tuesday, Thursday, Saturdays. I would start Tuesdays at 11, go to like 7 or 8. Same thing for Thursdays and Saturday. I'd go from like 11 to 9. Okay. And I did that amongst my personal training schedule because I had to make this work. But I didn't treat it like I might do it. I was always doing it. It would have taken me being sick or a disaster to happen because I treated it like with a full-time mentality, even though it was part-time. Stay consistent. Follow proven systems. It's very helpful as you find an agency. We'll talk about what to look for to join an agency that has proven systems from prospecting, leads, sales, carriers, etc., and has actual examples of success. You really want that in there getting started, full-time or part-time. Continue attending training, also very important, even though you're not fully invested in your career. You're doing this as part-time. To participate in training, still always be sharpening the saw and getting better. And the key thing that successful agents do is treat part-time insurance like a real business. Okay. That's the trick. Treat the thing you're doing part-time with a full-time mentality. And in other words, ask yourself, if I was just doing this and my entire income depended on it, how would my activity and commitment level look? How would I treat it differently? That's how you should do it, even though that's not the case. So, and the flip side, how do agents fail at selling insurance part-time? A couple of reasons. First of all, limited appointment availability. They may only do it 5 hours a week. I wouldn't do this if you could only do it 5 hours a week. Not enough time. Balancing work and family. Some people just cannot get their family on board, their spouse on board with the sacrifice of time to have a side hustle. Okay. There's no easy way, and you're going to have to set the standards and you're going to have to pay the price. Again, mentioned this previously. And this is one of those things there people get hung up on it. Slower learning curve. Again, part of the drawback to some extent is if you're not doing as much, you're not going to learn as much. That's certainly something worth considering. Fatigue after a full-time job. Look, putting in 60 hours a week, 70 hours a week may be what you have to do in order to get out of your full-time job and to do eventually insurance full-time. It's exhausting mentally, physically, etc. People give up because of that. Staying disciplined and that's a derivative of the adversity that you'll experience, as mentioned previously, and refusal to pay the price of success in advance. And that's really ultimately the decision you make: is that, are you going to accept that you're going to have to do all of this hard work and deal with the outcomes of this to get what you want out of life? If you're not going to do that, then you're not paying the price. You're probably not going to be successful. So bottom line, part-time is absolutely a proven path to selling insurance successfully. I did it. Many others have done that as well. You still have to be consistent. Many people have started part-time, and make sure you build your skills up before making the leap. That's what makes part-time beautiful. And then, hey, you can transition into full-time when you are ready. That's what makes part-time awesome. So another question from Score in the chat. He asks, what should my return be on a 10,000 lease event? That's totally dependent on what product you're selling. I don't know what it is. I'm going to take some stabs at it in the interest of time. First of all, I would want you to get back your money at a bare minimum, obviously up front. Okay. Now, if you did that weekly, but let's say you broke it up, so that's $2,500 a week, right? So I want to see enough sales and cash flow to cover the investment immediately. So, for example, if I'm making an average of $500 in a sale, selling something like Final Expense, which is doable, then the 500 to 2,500 is 5 sales. So the break even on sales is 500. Now, what I would like to see is a multiple of that investment. And I'm of the persuasion that a good multiple is somewhere between 3 to 1 to 4 to 1 as the bare minimum. It can be a lot higher than that based on your skill set. I know agents with 6 to 1, 8 to 1 investment. But the key thing is that you want a multiple. You're not in business to break even. We need to know what break even is. But we're in the business of knowing, I want to sell, if I make 500 a sale and it takes 5 sales to cover it, then I want to make sure I'm selling 15 to 20 sales. Okay. And then from there, you work out how long do you have to work? How many sales do I get per hour? And then you work out the math behind what action is necessary in order to be successful. So it comes down to just the economics of the product. Score. Once you know what they are, you can just do backwards math and understand that, yes, on one level, we want to cover our money fast. Okay. Use carriers that pay an advance commission. But beyond that, I think in the life insurance, to be a little more specific, 3 to 1 to 4 to 1 is the bare minimum that you want to make up front on your investment to make the business worthwhile. Okay. Excellent question. All right. Let us continue. So question 4 is, how much money do you need to start selling insurance? Kind of getting into the economics of the business. So of course, it's going to depend on how you run your insurance business model. Now, some agents spend very little, others overspend, and then they go belly up. So if you get into this business, there is some level of financial commitment, and figuring out what is necessary and what isn't, and then defining a pathway forward with joining the agency that can facilitate it is incredibly important. Okay. So the typical startup costs are as follows. First of all, state licensing and exam fees. Everybody's got to get a license. Everybody's got to do pre-licensing for the most part, and then sit and take the exam. I would estimate about $200 to $400 in order to do that, spread over the course of pre-licensing, paying for the license, getting fingerprints, etc. Fingerprinting and background check. The next layer you need in most cases is errors and omissions insurance. This is basically general liability to protect you in the case somebody sues you. The going cost on that's about $400 a year. There are plans like EO for less. You can get a plan with 125 down and then $40 a month, and then cancel it at any time if you end up not being in the business. So you're not stuck with this thing forever. There is a small cost to carrier appointments by state. Typically, those aren't realized until the first sale. So they're a thing, or your agency pays them. So usually you don't see many of these until you're already selling. Okay. CRM or software sales or software. So like, for example, in Final Expense, You need a CRM. A CRM is a customer relationship management tool. It houses all your clients, leads, callbacks. Some include a phone number, text message sequence as well. This is a central hub to communicate with your clients. And when you have so many leads and clients, you need a way to automate it or at least control it centrally. And CRMs are a requirement. And then also sales software. So this would be like a quoter. For example, Insurance Toolkit's excellent product. They help you underwrite for final expense, term, Medicare, and more. I don't own it, but they're a great product and we use it extensively. I would absolutely add that in as a worthwhile investment. It's going to help you make more sales. So there are other types of software you may buy, like a dialer if you're doing outbound dialing. You may not do that if you're doing inbound calls. And that's kind of the extent to the CRM. And that can be from 50 to $100 to several $100s more. Again, just kind of depends on the component elements of how your business is being run. And what accounts for 80 to 90% of your monthly costs is going to be leads. Okay. So I would suggest that, again, we'll get into maybe you don't want to buy leads because to do it right, you're probably going to have to spend 3,000 to 10,000 monthly, not 10,000 out the gate, but 3,000 to start with. And then to scale that to 4 to 5, eventually to 10, and most of the major insurance models that are out there. And if you don't have that kind of money, but get involved with an agency that requires that, you're going to get pressure financially to maybe do something you don't want to do or to buy a cheaper lead that doesn't perform as well. Okay. So there's problems that come from that that ultimately may cause you to fail. And then, of course, you need basic office equipment, a computer, a couple of monitors if you're doing outbound dialing or doing remote sales, a headset, good internet, get a hardwire connection if you're working from home. Absolutely helpful to do so. Okay. So some common mistakes here when it comes to the investment side. So joining an agency requiring purchase leads with too little starting capital. My advice is to join a free lead agency instead. This is probably 90% of you watching should do this because one of the biggest realizations I had with training agents for many years is one of the things that takes them out is they just don't have the staying power that financial savings allows. And so that's part of the reason we, and about 90% of the agents that we recruit, go into a free lead program. We carry the cost of the leads, which is the biggest component cost. Okay. So it reduces the agent's required fees by 90%. And so that way the agents can sell, learn the business without the financial pressure. Okay. So if you're in that position, you can still make it work. Eventually buy your own leads. You want to one day because that's where the money's at in the long term. But in the meantime, you need to learn the business and you need to do it without what if you have 2 bad weeks in a row and you're out of money? You don't want to do that. Most people don't last. Buying cheap leads that never convert. There are people out there that are trying to sell you leads in this business that suggest all leads are the same and that what makes a difference is the person actually doing the selling. There is some truth to that, but there's also some lie. A lead that's a year old is totally different than a lead that just requested information 5 seconds ago. So the quality of the lead matters, where it comes from, and the age matter. So if you start buying cheap leads because your money's tight and you're being motivated because you're kind of broke, it's not so much, you're just in the wrong situation. And you're probably not going to last because you're making desperate financial decisions when you should be making ones that are sound. Okay. And probably shouldn't be buying leads, should be in a free lead program. Joining training, ignoring training to save money. Some training requires investment. If you just watch my channel, it's free. I've got tons of fantastic training. It's always been free. And there are times, I can't think of any, admittedly, where there's training opportunities that cost money, like maybe coming one of my Dig Roadshows, where you get great training, great realizations and perspective, but you want to save the $50 or the $100 it costs to attend. Not a smart move, but otherwise, that can have an impact. And financing unnecessary expenses. Don't be like the dudes. Look, I could be your dad. If you're like 18, 20, 22, and you get a great first month to get 15 grand and you put it down on your new Dodge Charger, the SRX, Hellcat, whatever y'all kids buy, like that's a bad financial decision, man. And now you got a loan, you got to pay when that money should be going to more leads so you can build up your bank account. You can have a big old bankroll. So if you have a bad month or two, which you will, like everybody does, including me, you'll be able to survive. So don't overspend just because the money's coming in. Okay. You really want to live like a poor person intentionally. I say that with no, angst or anything. You want to live frugally and save and accumulate. Okay. Just because you can doesn't mean you should. What's up, Dave? Okay. Yeah. Yeah. No problem. So don't make that mistake. All right. So here's some ideas on ways to keep costs low. First of all, work from home. So this is a strategy that, hey, you sit at your desk, you don't have to burn the gas or put miles on the car and all the maintenance required from it. It does help you reduce costs than, say, going in person. You could also start part-time. This is a really important strategy to consider because there is just an inherent risk in this business. If you get started on a part-time basis, you cut it in half or more. Okay, combine that with free leads, you may reduce it down to 90%. Use one CRM consistently. I see this sometimes from agents where they'll have like 3, 4 CRMs that they're rotating. It's just a lot of time consuming and costly. Centralize your activity to one thing. Buy only enough leads to stay busy. So I kind of sort of agree with this, sort of disagree. The worst thing you could do is buy too few, because then you're just not going to get sales, especially if it's a bad week. You want to buy the optimal amount, but more often than not, the better thing to do is buy too many. In fact, the best problem in the world is too many people to talk to, and the worst problem in the world is too few. Does that make sense? So optimize your lead purchase buy, or buy a little more than necessary, not way more than necessary. I mean, wasteful, but err on the side of too many and not too few. And then lastly, reinvest early commissions into growth. So one way is that if you're if you're buying leads, don't spend all your money. Put it in the savings. Your leads are like your investments, your business. There's money in leads. It's like you're planting and then harvesting. Okay, so get more per harvest. Buy more leads. Work more. Realize a better income. Okay, and save your money and develop a bankroll. Very important too. Okay. So bottom line here, insurance has a relatively low startup cost if you plan smart. Again, got to plan smart, keywords. Invest in activities that generate an income. Avoid unnecessary expenses early. Again, that takes a lot of agents out midstream, a couple of months in to 6 months, because they're like, they spend a bunch of money on crap they don't need and end up, in a financial bad position because they had a bad month. Focus on selling before scaling. Again, good at the fundamentals of selling before you start to add more leads or take on more financial risk. And then lastly, smart spending beats big spending. Okay. Do big spending on leads because that's where you get more money. So 1 second here, guys. I'll be right back. Just to take a short break. All right, and we're back. Question in the chat. Score asks, what's the commission on the free lead program versus buying your own? Check out daviddufour.com. I'm going to save the pitch. You can go there, though, and go into the whole detail. daviddufour.com will explain how it works in succinct and detailed language. Okay. All right, continuing on. Maybe. All right, here we go. All right, should new agents join an established agency or should they start completely independent? So a lot of agents getting started are like, why do I even have to join an agency? Why can't I just work for myself? I don't have to like pay an agency or an override to an agency or whatever. So what we're going to try to do is kind of explain kind of the differences here, why I think you should join an established agency versus, try to do this kind of on your own. Because it's lots of problems here. So let's first of all talk about the benefits of joining an agency. First of all, you get structured training. One of the things you have to understand, getting involved in the business, you know nothing. You don't know nothing. I don't care if you sold somewhere else. You don't know how to sell insurance. You may have some things you carry over that are adaptable, but the less ego that you bring to this and the more humility you have, the better. And a good agency has a structured training program that can accelerate the learning curve and prevent you from making an unnecessary mistake or many mistakes selling insurance. Sales coaching, very important too, as well. An agency brings you the ability to help you improve on the mistakes that you make. I've seen many agents go from mediocre to good just because a sales coach called them out on what mistakes they were making that they were totally unaware of. Also, proven sales scripts and processes. Again, this is an old, boring business. We know what approach and strategies work to convince strangers to become buyers in 30 minutes or less. And joining an agency that is dedicated to that is just going to provide you that as part of the process. Also, accountability. It's easy to like slack off when nobody's looking. But even if you're not in a managerial type of standpoint where somebody's breathing down your back, the fact that you're around peers and you have a little competitive sense and you want to perform to be in the big leagues in that group is very good to help you stay accountable to yourself. Also, community and support. You'll find like minded people who are just getting started too, or starting their insurance sales journey as opposed to doing it alone. Faster learning, getting insight from top producers, seeing what they do, listening to their sales calls. Good agencies have all of this, along with access to experienced mentors, kind of same with the sales coaching. And then quality lead programs, whether they're free, like what we do at Dig Agency, or you purchase them. The idea is that by joining an agency, you can kind of see what we're talking about. You kind of shortcut all the problems. And this is the thing, a lot of new people just don't know how many problems can happen when you join an agency and join and sell insurance. And by joining a good agency, they upend the problems before they become problems. Okay. So, benefits of being independent. Yeah, you control your own business, your own carriers, you build your own brand, you can hire your own team and have greater flexibility and arguably potentially long-term earnings. But the problem is it's like starting a restaurant from scratch. You have no operational SOP or guide to help you do what you're doing. You have no instruction from others and peer groups versus, say, starting a Chick-fil-A. If I buy into a Chick-fil-A franchise, then I know exactly what to do. They have it all done and they've tested and trialed it. That's what the difference is in joining an agency than, say, doing it on your own. Okay. So now that's the challenges of going independent. You don't get necessarily the same access to the all important fundamentals training, very little, if any, accountability. A lot of independent environments will not hold you accountable. You just kind of do what you want. Must solve every problem yourself. There's value in that on some level, figuring things out for yourself, but can be time consuming and expensive. Whereas if you just had somebody in your corner that have already experienced it, you can get past it faster. Responsible for your own marketing. That can be very expensive figuring out what works versus just copying and pasting what somebody in the agency does and what the agency promotes. You become responsible for recruiting as well if that's something you end up doing. And I just think it ends up being a higher business risk if your insistence early on is to start and be independent. Okay. So even when I started with an organization that Equita is their name, that provided a coach, a lead system, sales training, scripting. I run my own independent agency now, but it's because I built a requisite knowledge base and fundamentals for many years prior to that. And that's all I'm saying here too. Is just that's what you want to do getting going. Okay. So how to choose the right agency, of course, is what I think you should do is join an agency. Look for the following: a strong reputation. Are they well spoken of? There's always going to be people who don't agree with what the agency does, but is the vast majority of the experience from people actually been in it good? Do they have a proven agent success program? Do they have testimonials, case studies? Do they have people that can account for not just what the person who promotes the agency says, but what it actually does? Do they have excellent training? Again, this is kind of a reflection upon the success of the agents, I think. Are the commissions transparent? There's, for example, an organization, I won't name them, that they give a commission of a commission. So they tell everybody, hey, man, you are on a 90% commission. And everybody sounds, wow, I'm on a 90% commission. I'm getting 90%, but it's 90% of 50%. So what does that mean? They're really on a 45% commission. So it's just kind of like magic mathematical jujitsu where really people think they're at a 90, but they're at half of that. Okay. And I've talked to several people and they don't get it until I explain it to them that they're really getting ripped off. So again, commission should be like, hey, When you make this, this is what you get. It should be easy enough that a fifth grader should get it. Accessible leadership, you should have the ability to access coaches, mentors, people that can help you answer questions and Q&As, messages, etc. A positive culture, I think more accurately, a culture that reflects you as an individual that you can get along with and feel comfortable with. There are cultures that are probably positive, but not everybody's a good fit for. So this is part of the interview process, assessing what it is they do and who they are and seeing if you're a good fit. And then, of course, having longtime support is important too, as well. So, common mistakes about joining an agency, thinking it's all about the highest commission. Okay, commission independent of everything else is again, you're on your own. You may have the highest commission rate, but if you don't have the structural support to facilitate the most earnings, then what's your commission rate worth? Nothing or very little. Whereas if you had a lower commission rate, but all the structural building into it, your earning is what matters. What you earn is what matters more than what your commission rate is. Okay, if you choose an agency just based on hype alone, not a good strategy. Not a good strategy just because a bunch of people are bouncing around, jumping around. It's like church service gone wild. Avoid those agencies. Good agencies are focused on help, or are positive, but they're sound, they're reasonable, logical. They're about taking action, doing things. Okay, not just a frat party. Not there's anything wrong with it. Downplaying importance of training and systems. If you go into an agency and all they talk about is the opportunity to recruit anybody with a pulse, you, sir, are an MLM. Run the other way. You do not want to be a part of an agency that talks to you like that, because if they're talking about early on MLM recruiting as you're getting started as a new agent, that's what they're going to expect from you. And most people just fail out. And we'll, in the other forthcoming questions, get into why that's such a bad deal. Signing contracts without asking questions. You should have a read through of the contracts. The contracts are where the rubber meets the road. What are you going to get paid? How does pay work? What are the extenuating circumstances? What do you need to be worried about? And a good operator won't mind if somebody asks questions about the contract. I have people who ask me questions weekly. Hey, what about this section here? Can you explain that? And then I explain it, and they're cool because I took the time to explain it to them, because it's important they understand what they're getting into. Okay. So if somebody's pushing a contract across the table and they're pressuring you to sign it without considering it, that's not good. Thinking independence automatically means more money. Okay. So, like, if you're like, I just don't want to pay this agency or this upline and this and that, through overrides, and I want them out of the scene, that may make more sense once you're absolutely consistent in your ability and you've exhausted the necessity to have them. But in the beginning, it's not a winning strategy at all, and something you want to avoid. So, bottom line, most successful agents begin inside a great agency. So if you're thinking you want to be independent, that's fine, but I would put it as a medium to long-term goal, because the trade-off in the beginning is learning the business, and agencies are going to do it on a lot faster basis. Learn the business before trying to reinvent it. In other words, lower your financial risk. Strong mentorship often outweighs higher commissions. You may be able to earn a lot more on a lower commission level with great mentorship and coaching. Along those lines, the right environment can dramatically accelerate your success. There are agents that have left our agency that were amazing producers and went to a new place and just fell apart because the culture wasn't there. The environment to be successful wasn't either. And then they come back and they do great again. So it does matter. Environment absolutely matters. Focus on long-term growth. And again, don't get into the chase to the highest commission until, if ever, you establish a value proposition. Build your foundation first is really the vital, most important thing. Okay. All right. Question 6. Do I need sales experience to sell insurance successfully? The good news is that you don't. So if you're looking to join an agency, you're like, I've never sold anything before. Am I going to be at a disadvantage? The answer is no, not necessarily. A lot of top producers had no prior sales experience before they got started, and they learned the skill of sales. Sales is something you're not born with. I wasn't. I was a gaming introvert that stayed at home and played Super Nintendo. I was afraid to call Pizza Hut when I was like 12. Right? Like, I wasn't born to be a salesperson, but I learned it. I had an open mind and humility to be coached and developed. And if you have that, you can definitely pick it up. Okay. And what you'll find is selling insurance success is about the soft skills that are harder to teach, in fact, as we'll get into. Okay. So, what are those? What matters in insurance sales is not the script or charisma, it's things like listening. Do you talk less than you listen? If you are naturally a good listener or can train yourself, you're going to do just fine. Communication. Do you know how to phrase things in a way that people can understand? Do you know how to speak at people's level so that they don't feel like you're talking down to them, but you're talking on their terms and in a way they can understand and appreciate? Do you have empathy? Do you really want to help people? That comes across in your mannerisms and dispositions. Do you like solving problems? Do you like helping people? Do you have work ethic? That is the hardest thing in the world to teach. Are you just some people are just workers? Do you have that? Look, if you just put more time in and you have moderate levels and everything else, eventually you can figure this stuff out over time. Are you consistent? Boy, if everybody that joined Dig Agency, my company, was consistent, whoo, I'd be retired by now, right? Like this is a really important soft skill to have is doing the thing you promise you're going to do at the same rate for a long time. And willingness to learn. Are you a curious person? Are you somebody that is okay not knowing everything and wants to know more? And then more importantly, not learn just for the sake of learning, which is fine, but applying what you've learned so you can get better. These are the skills that make the difference, not inherent sales skills or already having the experience of sales. So where beginners act, it's funny actually in sales in general. We see this all the time, not just insurance sales. Beginners will come in and wipe the floor compared to the old hats that have always been there because they don't have a lot of the brain damage and preconceived notions and limiting personal beliefs that experienced agents who are good but not great have. Okay. And so what we see happen really well is beginners come in, if they follow proven systems, they don't have bad habits that they have to unlearn, they can do really well. They're usually more coachable, they're excited. These are all very important traits that help make a difference. And they tend to practice more consistently and they're open to feedback. One of the best examples of this, by the way, is I had a gentleman named Ryan Lodi. He's a very successful personal producer. He started at like 19 or 20. And before he started with me, he was flipping burgers at McDonald's. Okay. He didn't sell anything prior to that, but because he had an open heart and a desire to succeed, he applied himself rigorously and made, I think, in that first full year in like 2019, like 400,000 in sales, which was incredible, 8 years ago, roughly. Okay. Can't believe it's been that long, 7 years. And he's since then grown a great Medicare agency. He's just crushing it personally in his life and professionally, but didn't come in with any sales experience, but came in with that critical soft skills of consistency, dedication, and excitement about being successful. So we'll go back one slide here. How sales skills are developed. First of all, they are done because or improved by role playing and sales call reviews. So one of the things you should look for in joining an agency is, do you have access to listen to sales calls, role playing of top producers? Because you can learn to mimic what top people do by just simply listening to them. Watching experienced agents doing ride along trainings, maybe just whispering in or listening in on a call they're actually doing. Many companies allow for this, and many phone softwares can facilitate this, where you can barge in, but not necessarily they can hear you, but you can listen to what they're saying. Repetition. Again, sales is a skill, just like learning a sport. And the way you get better at sport or playing piano, like I'm doing, is you repetitively do the scale or the place that you're stuck at until it becomes muscle memory. And likewise, sales is the same thing. You always work on the thing that you need the most improvement on. Handling objections. There's a systematic approach to overcoming things where people say, let me think about it, or I'm not interested, and things like that. You don't have to randomly figure this stuff out. There's a systematic approach, and learning that approach is critical to your success. Learning product and underwriting knowledge, of course, is vitally important. You have to know which companies to put your clients with in order to give them the best combination of price and coverage. And of course, reviewing your own performance. One of the best things that all top producers do that help them get better is listen to their own sales calls, listen to what they did right, and more importantly, where they can improve on, and then work on that weakness so that the next call they do, they don't make the same mistake. All right. And what makes great salespeople include things like they ask good questions, they genuinely care about helping their clients, they stay calm under pressure, they improve after every appointment, just like we mentioned, and they maintain, or I should say, remain consistent regardless of results. So, perfect example professionally, I had 1 week in 2015 where I had 15 presentations with nothing in 1 week. I was like looking for the ledge on the side of the mountain where I was working in Tennessee to jump off. I was like, it's over. But I still persisted, and I ran the 16th appointment, and I did a $4,000 AP sale, which is enormous. And then the remaining 2 days, I did another 15 appointments and sold another $4,000 in collective premium. And I ended the week with 8,000 premium, which is a fantastic week 10 years ago. And I thought, man, at the time, it's like, wow, this is exactly the emotional roller coaster. And this is why you shouldn't have any judgments about the performance or lack thereof of one singular presentation, much less multiple ones. You have to almost think robotically like a factory. You're just assembling, doing your thing, going to the next one. It has no bearing on the next presentation, what happened in the previous one. Rinse and repeat over and over again. And with enough numbers, things tend to work themselves out if you're following a good system. Okay. So bottom line, sales experience is helpful to be successful, but it's not required. Sometimes it gets in the way. But remember, as long as you're coachable and you practice enough and you develop yourself, this is where the term or the idea that great salespeople are developed. They're not born. Okay. You can learn this. Don't worry if you have no sales skills. If you're willing to learn and you are humble and you can apply yourself, success is within grasp. Okay. So how long does it take to make money selling insurance? Let's talk about that today. So the honest answer is this: most new agents don't get rich overnight. Okay. This is a get rich slow business. All right. If somebody's saying that you should get money like real quickly, this ain't the truth. It's not going to happen. Okay. And if it is, what's the catch? That's what I would be thinking. The insurance business can be better thought of as a get rich slow business. It takes a number of years, in most cases, to fundamentally learn the business and become consistent that you can pull money out of it without too much thinking. You just do the thing and you get the money. Of course, that can be sped up with good training and coaching, but it's slower rather than faster for most people. Your timeline depends on the type of product sold, activity, training, lead quality, etc. Again, some business models like final expense, you can make money faster than, say, a model like Medicare, which is a more residual based product where in 5 years, your income then should be substantially higher than final expense for the same amount of productive work in that year. And you're going to get more money from residual streams of income because the nature of the product is residual. Okay. So it just kind of depends. And again, this is where due diligence and research on not just the agency, but the product you're selling helps a ton. Some agents earn their first commission within days, others takes weeks. So again, it just depends on what you're selling and the structure. And either way, the way that you make the most money is consistent action. It's not linear. It's not exactly tit for tat to begin with, because there is the learning curve, but consistent action pays off over time. And what determines your income, of course, is how many people you're talking to a week. Are you working fresh quality leads, recycled ones? That can make a big difference. Are you following a proven sales process? Are you making it up as you go? I can tell you the proven process is probably better. Are you getting coaching when you're stuck, or are you getting help from a third party to identify where your weaknesses are? And then those small improvements on all of these factors can compound into significant income over time. And keep in mind, too, the first 90 days matter the most in earning the most money as possible. And it's not that the first 90 days you're going to earn the most money, probably earn the least, but what you're going to build is the skills to pay the bills, as my old college professor said. Okay. So focus less on chasing money and a specific income number and more on developing your fundamental sales skills abilities. Okay. Get passionate about it. Expect to make mistakes. Don't be too hard on yourself. That's the learning process. Remember to record your calls, review them, seek feedback from mentors, listen to top producers' calls. Those are the ways you're going to improve every week. And then agents who stick with this process ultimately are going to make the kind of money that they want. And last but not least, set realistic expectations. Everybody has bad weeks, including good agents. Insurance rewards consistency. Again, are you tired of hearing that? We're only like 7 questions in. You'll hear it all the time, but it's because it's true. The first few months are about building confidence and competence. That's what matters the most. And if you can commit to learning and staying active, the income, like I said, typically follows. All right. So, as you're looking for an agency, what you'll find is a lot of them are going to proposition you on how they sell. Some of them are going to sell face to face and teach you to sell your local market, maybe your friends and family, that kind of thing, more traditional path. While others, because of COVID and other factors in the early 2020s, have now moved to more of a remote based style where you sell out of your home, perhaps from a call center, and are in a position of not having to see people face to face. So the question that many people ask when they're looking for an agency in a career is, which one of these is best? Which one should you do? And that's an excellent question that you need to spend a good amount of time considering and covering. And understand, first of all, there's just no best model. There's no worst model either. Okay. Both strategies work. I produced a lot of sales in person, the traditional method, going door to door. You don't have to do that. I have agents who crush it, do way better than I did, that are working from a home office or, at home. So it's not a matter of one or the other, it's what's best for you. So, and that's going to depend on your personality, your goals, your lifestyle, kind of just how you are personally situated. And success comes from mastering one approach before trying both. The other side of that, too, is that I don't think you should do a hybrid approach. That's sometimes a third option people consider, because how you sell and the nature of the process differs, even though it's the same people in many cases with the same product type, in person versus remote. It's better just to do one. Okay. So don't let social media convince you that there's only one path to success. I see this a lot in videos that telesales is dead, or face to face is dead, or remote based selling is full of chargebacks, and not face to face isn't. These are just videos to stimulate you to getting to watch them, but not in a logical sense, but more of in a sense to get you to sign up. Okay. They all work, but one works better than others. So let's talk about the benefits to help you kind of sort this out so you know what agencies to begin to even look at. So first of all, the benefit of remote sales include things like working from anywhere. So there are agents that work from home, they travel and they work out of their travel arrangements. They do it internationally even. They can sell insurance internationally. As long as you're licensed in the state your client is in, you're fine. So if you like the idea of the digital nomad lifestyle and kind of moving around and having some autonomy and freedom, I mean, this remote based sales might be perfect for you. If you don't like the idea of driving, like if you live in LA and you got all this traffic everywhere, I mean, it's mind numbing, soul sucking, soul killing. You might want to work from home, because even though you're in a geographic area where there's enough people to see it, just the traffic and the time behind the wheel can just be debilitating, that you could have spent other things with family or more time selling. Also on the list here, let's keep going here. Whoops. More appointments each day. So in remote sales, you can theoretically talk to more people than you can in person, because more people pick up the phone than the time it takes to answer doors. Easier to build a flexible schedule. So this comes in handy, like if you're in California and you can only work from 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. and then you got to go to your job at 10. Like you could literally get 15 hours in Monday through Friday calling East Coast, because you can legally call them, right? So you can fit it into your schedule a little bit easier doing remote-based sales versus if you're doing in person like I did. I had to get off of work back in the day when I had a job and I did part-time final expense life insurance sales the second time around. And then I had to travel to the area that I was going to. And then that was just extra time, not to mention time to drive home every night. Excellent option if you prefer technology and phone conversations. Okay. So if you don't like being in people's homes because you think it's kind of weird or icky, this is great, right? So a lot of people, they don't want the risk, and remote-based sales facilitates that really easily. Now let's talk about some benefits of face-to-face. So there are some agents that prefer the field, another term for face-to-face sales, because there's stronger personal connection with clients. I believe so. By sitting down in their home, seeing them face to face, looking them eye to eye, there's just this belief that, hey, I can do a better job of getting them to like and trust me to sell more of them. And I would argue in most situations, take a product, there's a higher ratio of what you're going to sell in person for the same lead versus if you did it remotely from home. Can be easier for newer agents to build trust. So I think telesales is marginally more, not dramatically, but marginally more complicated because you don't have facial expressions, eye contact, handshaking to help facilitate trust. It all depends on your tone, and sometimes tone takes a long time to work on. Okay, so perhaps for the newer agent who has no sales experience, it might be worth considering face to face if it's otherwise acceptable to them. Less phone rejection. Again, people are just nicer in person. I mean, I've had doors slammed in my face and cursed out. I mean, everybody does. But that volume is pale in comparison when you call up somebody on the phone. People are paper tigers when you talk to them about what they're going to do to you. And if you ever call me again and all this nonsense, and you show up at the house, they're super nice people. Like they're just pussycats. So less. I think rejection overall selling in person than over the phone. Great option if you enjoy meeting people, just like in person. That's what I liked. I did it. I enjoyed it. I like seeing old people. That's my client base in final expense life insurance. It was enjoyable. And I liked it. I just liked seeing people. So I like it. And so you should do it if you like it. Often ideal for agents who don't enjoy sitting behind a computer. I heard this a lot when we transitioned to we do both face to face and remote. I would say 90% of the business now is remote. Like agents just don't want to sell in person. We offer it, you choose, and we kind of help them, guide them with the same process. But probably one of the biggest objections I would hear is that people get so bored sitting, waiting for a call to come in, or just sitting at home all the time. The walls are coming in on them. It's like they got to get out there. These are generally more of the people persons. They kind of like to be around people. Like it just gives them energy. The natural connectors of society that get their kicks off of meeting and greeting. Like to put them in this is like a prison for some of them. So having them go out in person tends to be a better experience for them. So if you're like that, you might prefer face-to-face sales. Okay. All right. I keep doing this to the spotlight. Sorry. So which one should you choose? Let me help you kind of finalize this to some extent, or at least point you in the right direction. Don't pick based off of hype. Just because somebody says they're selling a ton of insurance doesn't mean that the other type of sales strategy isn't. So set that aside. Don't just pick because a video or 10 or whatever says this is the best way or the only way. Consider your personality, schedule, market, and long-term goals. Like think about you. Like think about how it is. How do you like being around people? How do you feel about going to people's homes? Are you okay with that? Is that scary? How do you feel about talking to people over the phone? Is it natural, comfortable, or do you just feel like you stumble over yourself? These are going to help you further delineate, which approach is good, therefore which agency to look at. Know that many successful agents eventually learn both. They start with one, maybe migrate to the other later on, although not necessarily. Some stick with the same one the rest of their lives, right? So bottom line, the best sales model is the one that you'll consistently do. This is so critical. Drop the pretense of thinking one is better than the other. Do the thing that's best for you, because if it's best for you, you're much more likely to stay with it when it gets hard. It's going to get hard. I mean, look, there are bad things about face-to-face and there are bad things about in-person, okay, or telesales. You don't get rid of the bad. The key thing is to figure out what bad you can tolerate, because if you can tolerate the bad in telesales and enjoy the good, you can probably stay with it long enough to develop mastery and then maximize your income. Whereas if you went face to face and it was a drudgery and the driving and the people and the houses, don't want to do that. Maybe you would have quit prematurely, right? So I want you to stay in the game, not quit prematurely. All right. So how do I choose the right agency? As we get into this, as you can see, we're making our progression through this training today, talking about all the variables to be concerned with and getting closer to the nitty gritty. So understand this decision can entirely shape your career. This is such a critical decision. The agency, The agency you join will influence your training, the income, support, long term opportunities. Like that's everything. All right. And not all agencies are the same. Some offer nothing in terms of training or coaching, or very little, or promise one thing and say it and do another, and can totally cause you to fail. So a great agency accelerates your growth, and a poor agency can waste months or years of your career, or just end it. Just end it. Okay. So don't base this decision, uh, flippantly, like just off of just random, like, okay, I'll do it. Base it off of something other than what commission you're earning. Base it off of what the product is and what proof there is behind what they're offering you. So, some questions you should ask every agency. And one thing to understand is that joining an agency is not like getting a traditional job. You think, oh, I got to dress my best and say the right thing and make them really impressed with me. Well, what you'll find is if you have a pulse or if you can fog a mirror, they love you. You're the best agent they've ever seen. They want you right now to join and sign the dotted line. So this is a business that wants as many agents as it can recruit. We'll get into why that is later on. But the important point to understand is you have to have some level of brakes to put on to say, well, hold up. I got questions for you because I don't know if what you have is good for me. And of course, to say it respectfully, and then ask questions to make sure if the opportunity is actually valid. Okay, so let's go over that. First of all, how is training delivered? Let them explain to you how training is delivered. Is it Q&A? Is it exclusively video based? Do you do one-on-ones? Is there live trainings? Get a good idea on what training actually looks like. Who actually helps me when I need it? So when you're stuck in an application, it's not submitting. Who do you go to get help? What do leads cost if there is a cost, and where do they come from? If an agent asks me that, I'll say we do in-house lead generation via Facebook, and that's where our leads come from. And then you dial them. So the agency should be able to very easily explain exactly how they work. What technology and systems are included? So are you going to get access to a CRM? Or do you have a dialer? What dialer is it? What are the benefits of it? And what does success actually look like here? Like, give me examples of if I work hard, what I'll become. What kind of income could I earn? Okay. Here, pro tip. I may have mentioned this on the next slide, but I'll mention it here. If you ask these questions and the agency gives you like half answers, questionable answers, scoffs at you, gets annoyed, you've gotten the answer you need. You know that this probably isn't a good fit. Agency should be thrilled that you're asking questions because that shows the level of seriousness about your desire to be in a good profession. And if you don't get that kind of feedback in a positive manner, I wouldn't do this job with them. Okay. So you have to read between the lines, and you can't just take everything they say at face value. Think about how they're answering it. Does that make sense? Okay. So there are red flags. I'd advise you to proceed carefully if the recruiter can't clearly explain the business model. They should be able to explain this. Like I have recruiters that work for me that run my Q&A calls. They can coherently explain 90 to 95% of things so that you can understand how our agency works to see if it's of benefit to you. And if there's things they're confused about, they're trained to come to me and then I'll answer for them. So they learn and then you get the answer. But if you're getting like the runaround and you're not getting clarity, then something's not clear and you should question whether you should even join them. Everything revolves around recruiting instead of selling. Okay, if you're joining an agency and they can't wait to tell you about how great their opportunity is to recruit friends and family, run. It's not a professional sales organization. The ideal way to start in this business is with a professional insurance sales organization that teaches you how to sell insurance, not recruit people. Recruiting is fine once you know what you're doing, meaning you're successful at it, and you can then competently teach others to duplicate your success. Training is vague or non-existent. If it's just like, read the script and good luck, a lot of agencies are like that. Don't do it. Not good. Income claims seem unrealistic. I remember coming across an agency that said that our average income for our agents of 150 is It's 125,000 a year. And I thought, that's BS. That's the biggest pile of crap I've ever heard. It's impossible. It's impossible. Maybe for again, a huge stretch in and of itself, perhaps true for 1 week or 1 month, but consistently over time, that's a lie. Why? Because the average is like 50,000 a year. Okay. That's what the Bureau of Labor Statistics says. So if you're seeing income claims that are just ridiculous, probably are, and you probably shouldn't join them. You're pressured to sign a contract immediately without asking questions. If they want to put you into a contract and not give you time to review it, ask questions, they're hiding something, trying to. Don't even join them if that's the case. That's what I would say. So what should you focus on? Well, I would focus on the long-term fit. The best agencies aren't the loudest. They're the ones that choose and have mentorship as a first focal point, as opposed to their marketing of the agency, the hype behind the agency. Look for proven systems instead of promises. Like, what kind of systems do they have? How is it proven in other agents that have joined and proven by their success? Talk with agents if you can. I would honestly recommend any agency you look to join, ask to speak with a handful of agents. Speak to them. Can you just give me an email? I'd like to ask them a few questions. Doesn't mean you'll speak to all of them, but if you get an opportunity, the owner or the agency owner or recruiter say, yeah, sure, here's a couple of names. Feel free to reach out, ask questions. If they don't, I'll be a little concerned. Not super concerned, because some people really protect their top producers, and maybe just that. But if they are offended by the idea, then I would be concerned. If they're like, yeah, we used to do that, and our top producers, they don't like it because they lose focus, that may be a little different, especially if there's other case studies or support around. Okay. Also, find an agency who values support and a business model that aligns with your long-term goal. Okay. So again, support, values, systems, business model, all of this is super important. Okay. All right. Let's go on to question 10 here. All right. This is the stupidest question, but I have to ask it because some of you are thinking about it. You're thinking about joining a multi-level marketing company. You're thinking about recruiting from the get-go is actually a good idea. And I'm here to try to talk you off the ledge. Okay. So let's talk about it. So getting starting here, understand that there is, again, in this business, if you're like, what's multi-level marketing? Maybe you're brand new. That's cool. Multi-level marketing is a concept where essentially the business model isn't as typical that you would think, like an agency hires an agent and then they sell and make money from the sales. The the agency is actually focused on mass recruitment. They follow this idea of the endless chain concept. If you recruit four, then they recruit four, then they recruit four. There's an exponential growth. And then if 20% sale, then you're making a piece of the action all the way. And it really appeals to the human nature of making money without doing anything, which we all like the idea. I'd like to sit around and make 10 grand a month and not even lift a finger. Right. And for the person who is unaware, or the person who is suggestible by a charismatic salesperson, this can be their undoing right from the get-go. Therefore, it's vitally important that you understand that MLM exists. It's the major player in the insurance space, especially in life insurance. And you need to have your guard up. You need to question what you hear. Just because they say something doesn't mean it's true. Okay. You should do that with me. It's just a good life strategy to just, trust but verify is kind of the idea. Okay. So, of course, I don't think you should join an MLM agency. It just usually doesn't work out. But let me go over the differences here so you can kind of understand a little bit more if the concept is new. So I would define, there's a lot of different variables to MLM, but I would say the biggest variable is that MLM is about recruiting first. And the way that you find that out is you go to an opportunity meeting and they talk about recruiting more so or equally to sales. If that's the case, then what they're going to try to do is incorporate you into their system of recruiting people. And the failure rate on recruitment-oriented business models is substantial. It's super high, okay? And typically, your resources are drained without a fair opportunity to return money on that investment. Overrides drive compensation. So the idea here is that typically these MLMs, the idea of the MLM is started at the top of the pyramid. They install a large middle section, which maybe that upper half makes a lot of money, but then the middle and then the field agents are the ones that get hit a lot for chargebacks and roll up debt from bad producers that don't pay back their debt. Whereas the top of the chain, they benefit the most from this brainwashing of mass recruiting because they have all of these layers of chargeback protection. Because kind of jumping ahead here, when you recruit an agent, you co-sign their debt, meaning if they write business, their advance commission, and it lapses because you co-sign that, you now have to pay it back. Okay. What happens is the next layer up is responsible for that debt. So it moves up in this hierarchical fashion. So you can see being at the top of the pyramid is way more protective against huge chargeback roll up. And you just earn the profit. Of course, you have to pay back your portion of the chargebacks, but you don't have to also pay up the roll up debt. Okay. So the strategy of MLM is promulgated and pushed by the top of the pyramid for that reason alone. And their goal is to get as many suckers to believe into it, along with some maybe top middle sections that are along for the ride and they know the game, but they want to be up there and to continue this scheme so that they can profit. And then many people in the bottom lose bigly, especially the first order of recruiters at the bottom. So that's where overrides drive their decisions. Overrides are the money they get paid on each of your sales. It's not sales driven, it's override driven. Okay. Team building is often emphasized. That's along the lines of the endless chain concept. Let's see here. I keep hitting the Alt button. Sorry. And then also, not all MLMs are bad. Now, I put that in there because some MLMs emphasize sales, and it's less about the company as a whole and more about the regional office. So I won't name names here, but there's one company that, well, there's several where you look at them on the face and they talk a lot about recruiting. Most of their organizations do, but some of them don't. Some of them talk about sales and the importance of learning the craft of selling first and foremost before getting into the sales arena. Okay. Or into recruiting arena. So that's a fair and rightful orientation one should do. So if you find an MLM, but find a sub agency that is designed that way, it could be good, but most aren't. It's better if you just run the hell away is what I would recommend and understand the business model. Already talked about the business model. You're at a huge disadvantage if you do it. So what questions should you ask when you're looking at an agency to join, or if you're thinking it might be an MLM? You want to ask things like, is selling or recruiting prioritized? Sometimes they'll say it selling is, but their opportunity pushes recruiting. Trust what they're pushing, not what they're telling you. Okay. How are commissions earned? So are you earning commissions through overrides? Are you earning commissions through sales? Like how am I going to make my money? That's kind of where you want to go with that. Is training focused on production or is it training focused on recruiting? Again, pick that up from the opportunity overview. Are top producers active sellers? Again, are the people at the top of the chain recruiting or selling? And then did they get there by selling or get there by recruiting? It's another giveaway. Can you have success without recruiting? So this is important because a lot of these MLMs, what they'll do is they compensate you based off of recruiting. So if you want to figure out another way to figure out if an organization is an MLM insurance scheme or a legit sales operation is look at the commission earning grid. There's one in case in point. You look at it, it's like looking at, I don't know, an advanced math calculation. That's immediately for me, I'm too dumb to understand that. So I'm just like, it's a scam. Okay. But if you look at it closely, you'll see the first layer requires recruits. The second layer requires people in the pipeline to be recruited. The third layer requires producers selling pipeline. Like it's all oriented to get your commission higher with recruiting. And so you can very much tell in many instances if it's recruitment oriented by just looking at the commission structure. How much does it try to benefit the person who's doing the mass recruiting? Okay. So some common red flags. Proceed carefully if income claims sound unrealistic. Recruiting dominates conversations. Little sales training is offered. Pressure to recruiting happens immediately, and compensation isn't transparent. Okay. If it's overly complicated, it's trash. So my recommendation, just don't join an MLM. Keep it easy. Like a lot of the problems in this business, you can just avoid like 80% of them by just saying, "Hey, it smells like an MLM." That's good enough. I'm not going to even fool with it. Okay. And then it becomes a lot easier than to find a good agency. So what should you do besides just don't even think about joining an MLM is learn to sell insurance. Like get with an agency to learn to sell insurance. Build your skills to sell. Look for mentorship, people who've been there, not the hype train, not the stuff on social media. Recruiting is fine. Let it come later when you can actually teach somebody something. Okay. And remember, sales create lasting income. Because if you start recruiting a bunch of people that are deadbeats and don't pay their money back, now you're in a position where you got to pay it back. And if you're not a good salesperson, we're going to come up with the money if you don't have override production coming in. Right. All right. So question 11, what questions should you ask before joining any agency? Okay, so this is in addition to whether it's an MLM, a regular agency, doesn't matter. What you should be asking, very important question, okay? Very important to ask questions. So let's talk about it. First of all, why is it important? Well, first of all, remember, every agency wants you. It doesn't matter who you are, your background. I'm sorry, they're excited. They can't wait to recruit you because they're probably an MLM and recruiting you helps their numbers. So it's incumbent upon you to ask a bunch of questions because they're going to tell you everything you want to hear to get you to join. So you got to ask the tough questions. Make sure you're also comparing multiple agencies, okay? Because it's going to help you gain more perspective because the way one company does it may be entirely different from another. Verify every claim. If somebody says we're the best agency in the world, ask why do you think that? Or we do the most sales in company. So what's the second best do? How far ahead are you? Why do you think that is? Right? Trust but verify. Nothing wrong with that. Okay. Speak with active agents. Talk to agents actively selling and working for the company to get the scoop, the real scoop on what's going on. Avoid emotional decisions. You know, it's a business. You need to be cold, logical, precise. Your emotion will try to drive you. It does for everybody. But don't let emotion be the leader here. It's what can they offer, and is it something that's legit? Okay. All right. What questions should you ask? So let's talk about that. So as far as support goes, ask how new agents are trained. Is coaching ongoing? Are calls reviewed? Who answers questions around here? And is mentorship accessible? Very basic questions. You should get clear answers for all of them. Questions about the business. Ask how are leads generated? Where do they come from? There's a lot of scam leads out there, and there's a lot of compliance and suing going on to agents and agencies that provide, even you guys that are just working the leads get sued. So you need to know from a compliance standpoint where they come from. What are the lead costs? Don't join an agency that makes you buy leads without knowing what you're going to invest so you know if you can even do it. Which carriers are available so you know which companies you're going to sell. What tech is included or what additional tech should I buy? And how are commissions paid? All very important questions. So make an informed decision. Choose carefully. Bottom line, compare several agencies. Don't jump into bed with the first agency that can't wait to have you join. Look beyond just commission. There's so many other factors like we discussed that make a huge difference to your career. Evaluate long-term fit. Don't just think about what today's concerns are. How's it going to look 6 months or 12 months from now? Trust actions over promises, results over presuppositions. If there's agents who claim it's good that you talk to that are currently with the agency, that's worth a lot. You should weight that a lot. And most importantly, don't rush your decision. Okay. It's a lot harder to get out of an agency than it is to get in. A lot of agents, they join the wrong agency. They love the business, but hate the agency. And it's hard to unwind. It's not impossible. It's hard to unwind that. So knowing ahead of time as much information as you can is powerful. And without having that power, you may make a huge mistake. And not just like an oopsie, but a huge financial mistake, a 5-figure mistake if you are buying leads in the wrong kind. All right, question 12. What should I avoid when choosing an agency? So again, common pitfalls include chasing high commissions, looking for the agencies that are going to pay you the most. Usually because the commissions are high, they can't provide or don't want to provide anything other than a contract. And if you don't have coaching, support, mentorship, hasta la vista, baby. Ignoring training quality. Again, Train with people who know how to do the business. If you're around super producers and your commission's like just okay, it's not the highest, but you wouldn't get that, that might be worth it. Believing hype. Hype is great as far as for the agency goes. It may not be true though, right? So trust, but verify. You see a claim, do your due diligence. Joining too quickly, slow your roll. This business isn't going anywhere. People are always recruiting. It's worth slowing down a couple of weeks to do due diligence to find the best agency than jumping in with the first thing. And of course, skipping due diligence, bad idea too. Watch out for warning signs, which include unrealistic income claims, poor communication, hidden fees that weren't made transparent, weak agent support, and non-proven systems. You should not be a guinea pig. You should be getting involved with a business that has already figured it out. Make sure the agency you look at focuses on the fundamentals like quality mentorship, consistent lead flow, strong training, reliable systems, and a healthy company culture are all very important. And then beyond today, think about your long-term career, choose sustainable growth, prioritize skill development, find supportive leadership, invest in the right environment. And that's what matters. Okay. Like lay the groundwork. The first 90 days are so important. And working with an agency that understands building the skills to pay the bills as being the most important thing is what's going to make the difference. All right. Question 13. How important is training as a new insurance agent? So you're looking to join an agency. You're like, I see there's training. Like, how much is it going to actually make a difference? If I just learn this on, I could go watch Dave's YouTube channel, right? So I have a funny allegory here. I actually tell my agents and people on my channel, like, as soon as you join an agency that offers good training, stop watching my channel. Stop it. The purpose of my channel is to educate, but to hopefully convince you to join my agency. Ding, 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 ding. I mean, I enjoy helping, and I know it helps people, and I know it can make a huge difference for sure. But there's something about joining an agency that provides the training that you should go all in and do the training. Okay. So focus in on training. So it is really important, is what I'm trying to say. It is vitally important. And why is it? Because you develop the skills to pay the bills. If you don't know how to open a call, you don't know how to deal with an objection correctly, you don't have mindset training to prepare you for the adversity you're going to experience, it's all going to feel scary, chaotic, and you're going to feel like a failure when maybe it's just normal. But good training sets expectations and prepares you for the worst so that the outcomes can be the best. Confidence comes with practice. Okay, so by training, you're preparing yourself to be confident. On some level, you got to fake it till you make it. But by going through initial training and knowing what to expect and then doing the thing, confidence happens a lot faster. Great training shortens the learning curve by a long shot. Mistakes become opportunities. Again, part of training is realizing that, hey, I'm going to make mistakes, and those are opportunities to get better. Coaching accelerates growth. Again, we want to get you out of the learning curve as fast as possible because you don't want to be doing the same stuff and not improving. Whereas coaching and training helps identify the weak areas that you may be blind to. And great training is the biggest differentiator for an agent that's failing and succeed. I've seen it several times where otherwise mediocre agents succeed wildly with poignant and specific agent coaching. It's really important. Good training includes, of course, role playing with other agents, with mentors themselves, reviewing calls of other top producers as well as your own. Obviously, product education. You need to know underwriting. You need to how to submit an application. Nothing's worse than losing an app right at the moment of the close because you're stuck and can't figure it out. Objection handling training is vitally important, and ongoing accountability. Expecting better from you and having coaches and mentors and peers who want to do the same. Warning signs. So let's talk about some things that weak training looks like. First of all, one-time onboarding. Like, here's where you go, leave us alone, and that's it. Training should be more than just getting you a contract. Little accessibility. Look, mentors are busy, but there should be prescribed times that you can come to Q&A calls, meet with them in a group or individual setting, and otherwise be accessible. Some mentors are still salespeople, so just keep that in mind too. But there should be some level of access, a reasonable level. If there's no live coaching opportunities, be weary, or at least live sales call reviews where people are reviewing calls, mentors are. Generic sales advice like try harder, work longer. It's like that's true, but it's more than that, right? And learn it yourself culture. Here's your script, say it and leave me alone. That is not the kind of agency you want to join. Okay. It's not going to last long if that's the case. Okay. So my advice is training is incredibly important. You never really stop learning in this business. And the most important time to learn is right in the beginning. So remember, prioritize your education, prioritize training, ask a ton of questions as you get started, and especially the agency you're considering joining about their training program. Practice consistently. Don't have an ego. Look for honest feedback on how to improve and be okay investing in yourself on ways, whether it's coursework, training, etc., to get better at sales and be surrounded by positive culture, people, and coaches because it makes a big difference. All right, question 14. Should you be buying insurance leads or getting free leads? So in other words, you're looking to join an agency and a lot of them are going to either require you to buy your own leads and others are going to require you to use their free lead program. This is really important, okay? Because the offer on both of these types of agencies differ. And it's not that one's better than the other. It's just that some are better situated for you than others. What we're going to try to do is peel back to different layers of what to consider here, because in your observation for what's out there, you need to be aware that one is not necessarily better than another. One's probably way worse. So let's talk about leads first, okay? So again, it depends which one works better. It just depends on you. So leads are the business expense. It's the largest expense in your agency, okay? The question is who holds that expense? Is it the agency or you? And free isn't always better either. Sometimes the leads are lower quality. Sometimes the commission's lower. Usually it is. So there's going to be some kind of trade-off always, right? On who handles the cost of the leads. And quality beats quantity too. Are you getting quality leads? You may have an agency you're joining that's telling you to buy leads, but the leads are low quality, okay? And cheap leads cost time. And what really matters here is ROI, okay? What are you getting back from your investment? I want you to step back and think about this in a bigger way. Because buying leads can cause you financial consequences, that's for sure, okay? The horror stories in this business are many of agents coming in, spending 5 or 10 grand or more, and the leads produce nothing. It's maybe the leads are bad, maybe they're not any good, they're with an agency that doesn't train or coach them, and they didn't advise them on purchasing, and they fail out. Dime a dozen story in the insurance business. You could be that person if you don't think through this. So the biggest perspective shift that I had, and especially how I run my agency, is risk management. I would ask you a question that you need to consider for yourself. Is it more important as a new agent to have the highest potential for income return? Or is it more important as a new agent to have the lowest risk for loss? Think about that for a moment. I believe 90% of agents fit the second description. Knowing what I've seen, many agents come across this business, they're not rich. They don't have a ton of money, but they see the opportunity to do just that. What they need is time. Because if they go the route that requires the highest, that has the highest return potential, but undercuts the highest risk potential, typically the risk outweighs the reward. And there's where the losses come from. So I believe it's thoroughly better for 90% of you watching this to look at this as how can I reduce my risk of losing a ton of money, to test to see if this business is right, and to give me enough time, if it is, to develop the skills to pay the bills. So that long-term, medium to long-term, like 6 to 12 months in, I can move to a situation where I can maximize my earning per sale by also carrying the risk of buying leads personally. So this is where a free lead system and an agency comes in handy, because the lead buying business is so brutal to new agents and most cannot survive it, okay? So if you buy leads, and you decide to buy leads, you want to ask some questions like, and you join an agency that requires us, where does the leads come from? Ask them. Do they come from social media? Are they inbound? Are they TV leads? What does the copy of the lead say? What is the offer? Right? Are they exclusive? Are you getting these leads exclusively? Not all leads are exclusive to you. Sometimes they're shared. You should know that up front. Not to say that's bad. Same thing with the age. Are they age? Are they old? The sales can be made on any kind of leads, but you want to know what you're getting into. What's the average cost? Again, you shouldn't even be doing and buying leads unless you know what the cost is, what the return expectation is based off your commission, and whether it's a prudent investment or not, and is performance tracked. Okay. Now, some common mistakes that you want to avoid if you're buying leads is buying too few leads. Again, this is the biggest mistake, and this part of the problem being a brand new agent with minimal capital to spend is people play with scared money. Okay. If you're buying leads and you're scared and you buy less than you should or a lower quality than you should, you're going to have lower returns. Okay. So this is why it's a huge risk because you don't have, intuitively, you don't have the skills. And now you're supposed to be going out here buying premium leads, but you don't know what you're doing because you've never really done it at a high level yet. And so you start cutting corners. And this is the proverbial circling the bowl out of the agency and out of the business. And this happens a lot when agents buy leads of the wrong kind after a couple of bad weeks. Okay. But buying too few leads, if you're going to buy leads, buy more than enough. The best problem to have in this business is too many leads to talk to. The worst problem is too few. Okay. It's what kills people is too few, not too many. Choosing lowest price. If all you care about is price, good luck. Have fun. You're going to be broke and it's not going to be a fun endeavor. You don't want to necessarily pay the highest price for a lead. You want leads that give you the lowest cost acquisition. In other words, I've seen it internally myself. There are leads that cost $15 and it costs the company $250 to acquire the sale. But then there are leads that cost $25, but then cost $200 to the company to sell. So what's better lead? The less expensive one? Well, some agents would think that, but the real answer is the more expensive one because it's higher quality and it converts at a lower cost per sale. Now, it doesn't always happen that way, but the point is price alone is not the driving force, okay? I would say, generally speaking, there is a connection between price and quality. So the lower the price, the lower the quality. But there is some point where it could go either way. But generally speaking, don't be. There was a vendor that was doing $1 leads. Like those aren't leads; those are just names in a phone book. You're not going to get really good sales continually that way. You're better off buying a normal fresh lead in the $10 to $15 range that has a consistent level of long-term success out of it. Hey, Kevin, what's going on? Good to see you again, man. Ignore conversion facts. Again, that goes back to what's the cost to convert or the cost to sell. That's really important. Expecting perfect leads. Again, a lead is somebody expressing interest in your product. It is not a guaranteed sale. And a lot can happen that's dependent on you as a salesperson. So don't get mad when a lead doesn't buy. That's expected. The minority buy, and it's you working them thoroughly with a script and a process that has been well developed that makes a difference. Don't be the immature agent that blames leads for everything. Look, if you buy bad leads because you were told to and you believe them, okay, I get it. But you should be able to get results out of any kind of leads. It may not be great results, but ultimately, don't be the person looking for an excuse. And buying leads when you can't really afford them. This is a big mistake. Back to the free lead program. Look, if you are looking at this business and you're like, I got to spend $5,000 to $10,000 a month on leads, and you're scared, that's enough for me to confidently tell you should probably look at a free lead program shamelessly, like my companies, big agencies, because you can always buy leads later in your career, but what you need is time to develop with the lowest risk possible. Okay. So this is why most agents should start with a no-cost lead program. A risk reduction, like we talked about, buying leads properly is expensive. And if you don't have the confidence or experience necessary, you're probably going to batch it up. Okay. Buying leads as an inexperienced novice, it carries that extreme risk of loss. Again, I've seen it for many years now. And there's so many scam lead vendors everywhere that carry high litigation risk that agents get sued. and they didn't do anything wrong, but they're out to try to make money on you. Let the agency pay for leads while you learn. Eliminate most of the risk immediately. Like that's the smart solution for most people is just, okay, I don't want the risk. You take it, dig agency or another free lead company. Let me get time to learn the business. And long term, move to a paid lead program after you're well established and the business is predictable. Okay. Also, focus on return on investment, measure cost per sale, improve conversion skills, scale what works. So, like for example, that $25 lead at $200, I'm going to try to do as many of those as I humanly can. So, I'm trying to find always which lead type, if I'm buying leads or even as an agency, which is giving my company or myself the most money. And when I find it out, I'm going to do it as scaled up as possible so I can increase my profitability by that much. Okay. So cut the losers, scale the winners, let the winners ride. Track every dollar. You should be tracking your sales. You should have some systematic approach to tracking what works. A lot of the vendors out there will help you out and do it. So that can help you identify what's working, what isn't. And consider working quality free leads again, initially, like we talked about. Okay, question in the chat. Hey, Joe, thank you loads for this absolutely must know and understand information. You're welcome. I'm thinking about going indie and I felt that I don't know what to expect, which is scary as heck. It's funny. It's like, yeah, there's nothing wrong with being an independent agent. It's the ideal state of affairs. But the reality is that this is like, there's so much risk in this business and you don't know what you don't know, Joe. And that's nothing personal. You're ignorant as a new agent. Like you just don't know. And there's so much you don't know. And that not knowing you don't know risk is substantial enough that one bad move, two bad moves, a move made in haste because you're emotional and you're in a bad spot can end your career before it even starts. And what I've seen time and again is that the ones who make it in this business didn't necessarily make the most money out the gate, but they were in a program that facilitated their survival, right? So another allegory to this, I heard once it was John Mayer. He's like your body is a wonderland. You know, if you're born in the 90s, you know what I'm talking about. But he did pop songs, right? But he's actually like passionate about the blues. But he understood the way into making his mark in business wasn't doing blues or jazz or something a little bit more, esoteric. It was getting into the paradigm of what was successful, making his mark there to create a following, and then making a pivot to do the thing that he absolutely loved to do, which was blues or jazz, right? So he did that eventually, and the followers liked him. You see this all the time in music. Start off with a niche audience, then they start doing country when they were doing R&B or rap previously, right? Beyonce comes to mind. And it's a strategy that works. Is you may want something ultimately, but the way to get there is a process. And starting there may not be the most viable when you really think about the risk potential. Hey, Joe. Yeah, great. So yeah, if you're 10 years telesales, if you've been doing this 10 years, then if you're in a different spot, going independent, if it's the same product you're going to sell, it's the same process, right? Like it's not that much different. The big difference is if you're not buying leads, you're now taking on the psychological burden of, oh crap, man, I'm spending $2,000 a week on leads and I lost 500 because I only got a couple of sales. I was sick and, I got a mortgage, so it's like, hopefully you've saved money and you're in a better position financially. So that makes it easier. But the nice thing becoming indie after experience is that it's not that much different, except for the fact of paying for the leads now. That's the big thing. And managing yourself psychologically if you weren't previously. Hey, Cher, can you touch on insurance agencies getting bought up by private equity? And these agents are now losing their renewals and book of business. Yeah. I don't know if you want to be more specific about where that's happening, that would help. But private equity, so for those of you who don't know, private equity, these companies, that their job is just to buy successful businesses. And what they're doing is, it's like, think about buying a bunch of real estate, packaging it together, and then selling it off. It's probably worth more together than separate, right? So these companies, private equity comes in, buys a handful of related businesses, and then eventually approaches an even bigger buyer who then buys that. Okay. So the benefit to the company selling is they have an exit. They make millions of dollars. Okay. They have a way to get out of the business a ton of money very quickly and essentially retire wealthy. The downside is that private equity is notorious about changing the terms of engagement in order to facilitate profitability. Like there's tons of books and YouTube videos about how private equity destroys otherwise very good businesses just because of the sake of bottom line profitability, which that's arguably the job of every corporate entity is to maximize shareholder value. So they're doing their job, but consumers a lot of times don't like it. Fast forward to this, the premise here is a little murky to me. If you did own your book of business, then the fact that an agency getting bought would not mean that your renewal stream would stop. It would just mean that you would be paid directly from the carrier still if you own your book of business. Okay. Now, contractually, if you own your book of business and you're paid by the agency, then the private equity company has to uphold that right, or you can sue them. And they're nice targets to sue because they got a lot of money. So I don't know. It sounds to me like you probably never owned your book of business, okay, or your renewal stream. It was actually the carriers, and when they were acquired and ownership changed hands, they looked at you and said, "Oh, we don't have to pay her. We're legally not required to." So they just stopped, right? So that would be my thinking as to what happened. Hey, Joe, you're welcome. Appreciate you. You too. Cher says this happened with State Farm agents. Saw his on Dave Ramsey and two other agents. This happened to when Optum bought them out. See, now my understanding is that State Farm, you don't own anything anyway with State Farm. I'm not too familiar with their contract, but my understanding is that State Farm, you're just working as an employee. You don't own the book. State Farm does because they're such a powerful brand. That's probably what it is. And they probably just booted them out. And they're like, okay, we don't owe you anything. Integrity is also private equity. Buying, yeah, they're the big player. There's a couple others like AmeriLife, some other ones as well. Humana was doing some buyouts too. But yeah, that's likely the problem. If you own your book of business contractually, I wouldn't worry about that happening as much. Okay, let's keep going. What time is it? I'm probably gonna be here till like 6 or 7. It's funny. I didn't think this was going to take more than, an hour and a half, 2 hours. Then I realized like I explain things in like depth. And then I look up, I'm like, I'm 15 minutes into this and I'm still on the first question. Shit, man, I'm gonna be here forever. So this is probably instead of 45 questions, probably like 20 questions. Because my brain is gonna get fried here. Hold on one second. I gotta check something here so we can keep going here. Just bear with me here. Appreciate you guys being with me live. I might go longer. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see if I can keep up the pace. When you turn 41, oh my God, the energy just isn't there. I remember feeling that. It's funny, even selling insurance back in the day, like going door to door. I used to like early on, late 20s, man, I'd go from 8 to 10, no problem. But when I got to the end, like in my early 30s, mid 30s, before I transitioned fully to agency ownership and mentorship and all that, I remember there were some long nights. Like, dang, man, I'm tired. I'm sitting down in front of prospects. My brain is fried. And I feel like glossed over eyes. It's tough. Kind of YouTube's like that too. It's like the more brain you use, the less effective it gets. If I start slurring my words, I don't have a flask here. I'm not showing you, or it's intravenously hooked up. It's just I'm hitting fatigue level, and I'll just do the rest of this another week. So, all right. So let's talk. Question 15, how much does it cost to get started selling that insurance? So let's talk about the startup cost, because joining an agency, you got startup cost. As you know, you got things like your CRM, customer relationship management device. That is the thing that centralizes your leads, your clients, birthdays, follow-ups, etc. You got to have that. That's going to run you, like ours is $199 a month. There are others that are cheaper, $99 to $150. It's all in that range. And then if you do dialing, outbound calling, 100 to several $100. So, it's small relative to leads. That's the big one, but that's definitely part of it. Phone and internet. Why does it keep doing this? Good Lord. All right. Phone and internet. You probably already have the internet. The phone is probably an automated dialer. If you're taking inbound, sometimes you don't need a dialing system. You can just have them ported directly to your phone. So that's super convenient. Continuing education, every 2 years, you go to webce.com, not paid endorsement. They're just good at it. Pay $55 and send them your money, take the test, satisfy the state's requirements. So very cheap there. Marketing materials, which would be leads, thousands upon thousands of dollars a month to do it right if you're in a purchase lead driven strategy. There are strategies where you don't have to buy leads. The agency may teach something like seminar marketing that you can prospect for without having to spend money. And of course, professional equipment. What I mean by that is a laptop, computer, multiple monitors, very necessary if you're working from home. Okay. All right. But the main thing, like I said, is as far as costs go to joining an agency or selling insurance, is don't underestimate the money. Okay. The money, 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 money. Not just what it costs to do the leads, but what it costs to run the business and pay your bills while you run the leads. Okay. So building an income takes time. Depends on what you're selling. Some may be slower, some may be faster. That's why I like final expense. It's fast money, relatively speaking, to something like Medicare, which can be slower money, more substantial long term, but in the beginning a bit slower and lower because it's just a lower first year income. But the other side of this too that you need to think about is emergency funds. Okay. One thing you need to be doing as a new agent is not spending your money. Set it aside in a bank account. Set it, don't touch it. Set it and forget it, like George Foreman said. All right. I want you to have 50 grand in your bank as soon as possible. There's something happens mentally that when you have a bad week, you care, but not that much. And that mentality of, hey, yeah, bad week, but it's just a bad week. I can continue to go. It's easier to have that when you've got 50 large in the bank versus negative 1,000. You start doing dumb things out of desperation when you're in a situation of desperation, right? So building an emergency fund to cover your expenses, your leads, your living expenses, do it as fast as humanly possible. Case in point, I went broke the first time I went into the business in month 12 of my first year because I did stupid things I shouldn't have. I quit the business. I started back after getting a job at Aramark. I'm glad it happened, but I can imagine working for anybody. It's terrible, y'all. Why y'all do it? Sucks. And I got remotivated to go back into final expense, and I did it part-time, and I did not touch my money except to pay down like credit card debt and stuff I accumulated. I let that cash sit. I just lived off of my job money, and I did every dollar I collected. I didn't touch it to the highest extent possible. And when I went solo, man, it was way easier when I had less debt and a huge bankroll. It just makes life so much easier. So save your money. And this is part of the reason we like saying start part-time. Okay. If you're not in that position to more easily do that, look, start part-time. It's way easier from a risk profile to do it where you're not all in and you can depend on your main job covering your main stuff. Okay. Invest strategically. This goes back to finding a good agency with a good lead program. Okay. And think long-term. Again, the second time I went into this business was I'm not going full-time because I blew it the first time until I'm a year in, at least, maybe 2 years. Then I got my wife pregnant with twins. And then my wife, I was like, okay. What was the decision? I think it was she got hit by a car at 36 weeks pregnant. And I was on assignment at the main job. And we just started our FMLA early. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to go work right now. And then she had the baby a little bit later. She was fine. The kids were fine too with the car crash. And I went to work right away because I had that period of time where I had health insurance, the Cobra insurance before Obamacare started. And I took advantage of that. And I just worked part-time and I saved up my money. That's when I went full-time at that point. But again, I knew that it's worth slowing things down and not rushing into love because I had failed a business and knew how awesome it was. And so I guess that's my point to you is it's better to do this right than fast. And if right means slower, that's right. Because I don't want you quitting this thing. This business is awesome. And too many people quit too early because of running out of money and not thinking long term. So invest in your future, treat it like a business. Budget realistically. Let your budget determine if you're part-time, full-time, free leads, buying your own leads. Control expenses. Live frugally. I tell my son, he's 16, 17 now, good Lord. I tell my son, any kid that I see that'll listen more than 2 minutes, I'm like, look, you got to give up your 20s to live life in your 30s well. Okay. Maybe not that extreme, but for me, that's what it had to take. I had to pay the price in advance to have the nice opulence and material and personal success that I have now. While my friends and peers I went to college with were kicking my ass. And I had to feel bad about myself. Right. But now I'm crushing it. So part of that is denying yourself the things that you don't need, like the Dodge Charger, Hellcat. Reinvest your profits. All right, buy more leads, save your money. You'll find this business of leads is probably a better, and when you're good, a better investment than real estate. It's crazy. I even see this at my level. I'm like, should I get into real estate? I ask myself like every 3 to 6 months. And I seriously think about them. Like I could actually put more money into my business, grow it, create a bigger, income and increase the valuation because private equity, like we're talking about earlier, happens. So likewise, you'll probably find that once you get good, like you can invest that back into the business with more leads. Focus on ROI, get the most that you can, and then keep risk low. That's an important part of ROI, and build your company and your agency for longevity. All right. So question 16, what's a good commission rate selling insurance? So looking at agencies, you're going to be thinking like, hey, this commission is 40%, but this company offers 100%. That's a lot better. Why shouldn't I just do the 100% commission? Maybe you should, but maybe you shouldn't. It depends more on just the commission rate. So the idea that there is a good commission on its surface is incomplete. Dr. Dave here is going to have to know a little bit more to diagnose whether it's good, bad, or ugly. And of course, I can help you do that. So let's talk about that. So first of all, my number one advice here to y'all is don't chase money. Okay? Don't chase the highest commission. May not be the best. And in most cases, it's not because it lacks everything else necessary to help you succeed. So let me help you understand commission a little bit more. Higher isn't always better. You got to look at, never judge a book by its cover. It's kind of the same deal. What's inside the cover, the pages, the story, the learning experience, well, that's worth more than the picture on the front. Likewise, the agency is more than just a commission rate. And your ability to earn is more than just a percentage rate, okay? So things like support has real value. Training, man, does it impact earnings substantially. Great training makes a huge difference. Not for everybody. Some people, you can't teach them nothing, all right? I'm not here to tell you that anybody can sell. Only some can, and it's the minority of people, all right? But I can tell you that for those people who are in that minority that have the ability, if they're paired with a great mentor and trainer and they're humble and coachable, the success rate is substantially better. Leads affect profitability. So leads do matter. If you join and have the highest commission, but no insight, access, and direction on lead quality, what are you going to do with that 120? Yeah, nothing. So your effective earning is lower than if you had a lower commission, but really good quality leads and training and support to help you develop. See what I'm saying? So it's not just the compensation percentage, it's all the things involved with what it takes to make a sale. So look at the total opportunity, the total package, right? What do they bring into the table? If it's just commission, you're probably not developed well enough as a producer to make that work for you. So ask the right questions. What do you ask? when it comes to what's a good commission. Beyond commission, is training included? Are leads provided? Are they free? Are they not? What fees do you charge? Look at the contract in addition to make sure there's no hidden fees. What carriers are available? Look, you can join an agency with bad carriers and lose all sorts of sales. Man, I can think of a couple right now in our space, final expense, where you join a company and sell one thing, one product. You're going to miss sales left and right you don't even know about, because if you're a broker representing multiple carriers, you can pick and choose the product that's best suited and make a sale where you otherwise wouldn't, independent of how good you are selling it. Because at some level, if it doesn't make sense because you can't qualify them, it doesn't make sense. What are you going to do? So it's not just about compensation, it's accessibility with carriers, underwriting flexibility, et cetera. And how are renewals handled? Also an important question to ask, and what your long-term commission looks like. So what you want to think about is not commission rate, it's net income. It's what's in my bank account. How can I get more of the dollars in my bank? And what is involved in that process? Yes, commission rate is important, but it's not the only thing. So it's income after expenses. Okay, what expenses, like lead quality, do I have to bear to produce the income I want? And of course, the soft things like your ability and closing percentage is a function of what? Your skills, your mentoring, your coaching, right? All that stuff. Okay. So you should be thinking that more than anything else. Now, if you're a person that doesn't need any of that, you're a verifiable producer, or you're a savant, you can just figure this stuff all out. Maybe commission is the only thing that matters, but that's 1% of the population. At least in the beginning, the package deal is more important. And I would take a trade-off of lower commission for all of the package in the earlier part of my career, because again, you're a long-term thinker like I am now, right? So we're thinking 6-12 months now, at least. So in 12 months, maybe I am at this position, but what am I going to learn? What am I going to learn from all the mistakes I made that I don't make now 12 months in versus the first day in? And how much less risk is there going to be so I can take that higher commission and then also buy my own leads? So you're in a much better position where the income earning is substantially higher because you survived and you thought through things better. I do want to give you some general commission guidelines, because I don't want to say it's, whatever, it doesn't matter, because it does matter. So I want to tell you kind of what I would consider to be like the guidepost of what to expect depending on the most popular products to sell. Because there may be positions where you're like, hey, I want to be in a free lead program, but their average commission pays 10%. Is that a good deal? Because I get all of the package. I'd probably say no, or, hey, I get 120% commission. This is fantastic selling final expense, but I don't get anything and I've never sold anything before. Is that a good deal? No. So you see, there's kind of these extremes. So let's go over these real quick. So if you're in the life insurance space, you're selling mortgage protection, term, IUL, final expense. 90% for most products, buying leads is the key thing here, okay? That's with the main products, with the ability to scale higher based off of production. That's a good opportunity. If it's like 50, 60, 70% and they make you buy leads, bad idea, okay? If you're in a free lead environment, 20 to 40% is kind of where you want to be at. Like with us, our primary product pays 40%. That is considered, I would say, good, because the leads are not being covered by you. So the agency has to make more money per sale by lowering your commission versus, say, where you would buy it, in order to make it a sensible arrangement. If you're selling health insurance and buying leads, understand that for Medicare Advantage, the renewal rate at a street level is $330 a year. Up front, it's like $660, give or take. You guys correct me if I'm a little off there. I'm more of a life insurance guy. I'm not sure exactly where Medicare is on street level, first time commissions, but renewals around $330 in most states. Medicare supplements about 20% of the annual premium. So if they pay $2,000 a year, you're going to get $400. And typically you get that for 6 months, or 6 years. And then for ACA, 10 to 20 bucks per sale, give or take, sometimes a little higher, sometimes lower, depends on the state with all the different exchanges. Commission is very state-based in ACA. So that's what I would expect if you're buying leads. If you're in a free lead system on health insurance, typically the way they're arranged is a base pay, like 15 bucks, and then a bonus per sale if it does actually occur. And that can range wildly depending on volume of production you do, time of year. $40 to $100 is typical. Okay, just to give you some expectations of where to at least go and what to avoid. Okay, and again with commission, one thing that's not on here, it should be easy to understand. Like this is easy to understand, right? Like with life insurance, we base the commission off of annual premium. So if they pay $1,000 over the year, the annual period, the annual premium, you get paid 90% of that. So you're paid $900, right? That's easy, right? It's when they start getting complicated that if it's not that simple, my brain shuts down and I don't even look at it as a producer. Because if it's complicated, I'm getting screwed somewhere. That's how I look at it. That may sound low IQ, but it actually tends being the case very often, is that if it's complicated and there's all these different rings and arrangements and it's a big hoopla, somewhere in there you're getting screwed. So, and I want to say that's more often the case on the buying lead side, that we see these kind of screwball arrangements. So be aware of that. That's all I'm saying. So bottom line, focus on career value. Build the right foundation. Skills over percentages. That's what matters in the beginning. Mentorship first. Learn the business. The money will follow value. And think long term, y'all. Think long term. Questions in the chat here. Let me hit them up. Thank you. Yeah, starting part time is a great idea. It's a great being part time is it's just the smart move for most people. It just is. This business isn't going anywhere, by the way. I do talk about voice AI being a big deal for the remote side, but the face-to-face side will still be here. And I don't even know if voice AI is fully going to happen. I just feel obliged to talk about that risk over the next 2 to 5 years. A lot of it depends on what happens compliance-wise at the DOI state level. But I think it's intrinsic risk that I'm assuming will happen. So I'm playing the game differently because of it. But if it doesn't, then we're fine. But besides that, I mean, the business is going to be here for the long haul. That's kind of the point I try to make, is like, don't get deterred that things are changing. Stick with this business. It's absolutely amazing. And if that means you got to start part-time and slower, so be it. There's no big rush. It's not like the gold rush of, I don't know, real estate, from 2016 to 2020 or 2020 to 2023 or whatever, right? Where there's this huge rush up in pricing and then it just ends, right? Like this is a steady business that a lot really doesn't change. And that's good. We like boring. We like predictable, right? Also, what is the set amount of money do you suggest to start off with in regard to buying leads, paying for CRMs? At least a couple of months of your monthly expenses saved is what I would recommend. And then a month or two worth of marketing if you're selling something like life insurance that has a quick turnaround on cash flow. Medicare, probably more so in both savings and leads, because the cash flow is lower, the gross or the net commission is lower. But if you do it over many years, it's substantially higher income and on a residual basis. Chris, hey Chris, what questions should I ask if I'm buying leads from a pre-approved list provided by an agency? How are the leads generated? What kind of opt-in language do you use? Give me examples of what the calls sound like. Can you show me the ads? Can you get in writing that you exonerate or indemnify me from TCPA litigation claims? Are these in any way, shape, or form possible generated from overseas call centers? How do I know I'm not going to get sued? Now, you may think I'm being really anal retentive asking all these questions, but I can give you specific long stories about every aspect of what I mentioned and how the lack of one of these either cost myself or an agent a substantial amount of money and lost opportunity, or was sued over because of ignorance, not of malfeasance, but to settle the issue out of court. These are all real issues. Okay. Um, as a pro tip here, I don't know how much we get into the leads game here. We talked a little bit about it, but I'll give you the answer now. When it comes to leads, um, I would highly recommend staying away from most live transfer leads unless you know with beyond the shadow of a doubt they're originated on Facebook, where they're initiating the call from a call-in lead. I would stay away from live transfers because there's so many overseas call centers that flagrantly avoid the do not call compliance rules that we have as Americans to follow. And litigants have realized this is the norm, but they claim you're going to owe them money if they're illegally dialed, even though you didn't dial, you were transferred the lead. They claim because of um, you're involved that you're sued, and then everybody else in the upline is. And this is what happened with an agent of mine, totally innocent of anything. He was ignorant of the way this company did it. But that didn't stop the man from suing everybody, right? And there are professionals that sue for a living. There's so much money to be made, especially with AI now, with voice. A lot of these leads don't have pre-authorized recordings, and so it's just don't do live transfers that originate in Pakistan or India. Better to just buy Facebook leads from trusted vendors or hire somebody to do them yourself. There are a lot of management programs out there, or just people have been in the business forever. You really want to lean into that these days because the litigation risk is as high as it's ever been. Cool. All right. 17. So another question that's asked a ton is it better for a new agent to join a captive agency or an independent agency? What's the best choice? So real quick definitions. A captive agency is one where you really only represent one product. So like a Lincoln Heritage or a Senior Life in the final expense space are captive for the most part. You can only sell their products if you want access to their systems like leads, etc. Okay. The other side of that is being an independent agent, where you join an agency like my company, Dig Agencies Independent, and you have access to a multitude of products. So what is the better option? Let's talk about that. So again, one company versus many. Captive represents one carrier. Independents have many, from 2 to dozens. And they have pros and cons. And again, like most of what I've talked about, what's better, it depends. I'm going to give you my strong belief here momentarily, but I will yield that there are some people who just do better in one of these two environments, depending on kind of their personal dispositions. So let's talk about the captive advantages. First of all, in many captive organizations, you're going to get the following: structured training, strong brand recognition. Think State Farm, Allstate. These are captive organizations. They don't let you sell with anybody. You got to sell their products. But in exchange, like, people know State Farm, they know Allstate. There's a trust intrinsically inside of that brand. A simpler product lineup. So one of the advantages of working like with a Lincoln Heritage, it's one final expense product with two variations: the level product and then the graded or guaranteed issue product. Established systems. A lot of these have been around a long time. They have a system that works. They fine-tuned it. You just plug and play. It's kind of like a franchise operation. In some cases it is. And it's good for some beginners that need this level of construction and commitment versus what you'll find elsewhere. Okay. Now let's talk about the benefits of being an independent agent. So first of all, instead of one carrier, you have multiple carriers. That provides options to shop around if the one option doesn't make sense financially or from an underwriting standpoint. You get more product flexibility because of that. You can insure, therefore, more of your clients with quality coverage where you may have passed them up otherwise, which leads to better client solutions and satisfaction and more sales potential. You can sell more of your leads if you have more options where you may have to just pass them up if you didn't. And which allows, I think, to some extent, more business freedom. What you find more in the independent world is there's less quotas, less management, and more kind of do what you want aspect to it. Now, here's the deal. What really matters is the following. It's not so much are you captive or independent. Now, all things aside, I'm a huge believer that independent is the better arrangement for most agents. Captive is the less impactful. It can be good though. It's just independent just is better if you get the package deal for training, support, mentorship, leads, etc. But most important comes that back to the fundamentals. As a new agent, do you have access to fundamentals training? Will you be trained to sell successfully? Do you have mentorship, live sales calls? Do you have access to mentorship? Is there a proven systemic process to market and sell insurance at scale? That's what really I'm trying to convey to you in all of these questions in joining an agency. Being captive or independent, yes, there's pros and cons. But this right here on the screen, this here, this is what's most important. You need this. You need this if you're going to be successful. And if you get this as a captive agent, yes, I don't think it's ideal, but damn, it's better than not getting it. Because you need the foundation and everything just so to see if there's even any level of success you can have. You can always course correct later if you find an independent agency that has these things that the captive agency you first joined has. But you want to make sure that you have yourself the best opportunity for success. And it's less about the style of agency and more about their processes and systems they're offering you. Okay. So again, it depends. What are your goals? Again, do your due diligence. What kind of support are you going to get? Compare opportunities. Think long term. Think long term. And choose knowing that you can always pivot out of it. Like you're not stuck. You're not going to be there forever. You can always leave. A lot of people think you're married. They get divorced in insurance too. Don't worry. If it doesn't work, you can have an amicable separation. All right. Question 18. What are the best insurance companies to use? So that we're asking this question because you may be thinking like, wait a minute. Part of joining an agency is what are their offerings? Certainly some are better than others. And don't you want the best, not the worst? It's a good question to ask. So let's talk about it. So carrier access is absolutely important. The truth is the more access, the better, right? So if we have more options for our clients, there's more opportunity to sell them something. So that's important just on its face. And typically with more options, you have better access to underwriting privileges. Some companies may decline for diabetes. Others may accept it. Others may decline for COPD. Others may accept it. And instead of picking between one or the other, don't you want it both or more than that? Yeah, because that's more sales opportunities. Also, more options typically leads to more competitive pricing. And while pricing isn't everything with carriers, it is something. And there are circumstances where having a better price is going to help you win when you may otherwise not win. Higher approval rates as well. Some companies, are just iffy on approval, and others do better. And bottom line, what we're trying to accomplish here is greater flexibility, right? I want you to write as much business as humanly possible. When an opportunity presents itself and Mildred, your grandma client, is like, here's my checkbook. I need to give you money because I need insurance. You want to be able to take it. And it's when you have the best carriers and more carriers that's able to happen. So let me talk about Dave's three-legged stool to underwriting and carrier strength. So there's three factors that are really important to assessing whether a carrier is good, bad, or ugly. So let me show you. First is ease of use. The most important factor ever. Is it easy to use? Is it predictable? Is it something you can actually put to use? There are companies out there that do not have this. Many. Even if everything else is great, if it's not easy to use, you're just going to lose money. Second is underwriting predictability. I'm not saying like the easiest underwriting, but if I go to apply for a product on certain rating classes, I expect that to actually happen. Granted, if the client's not lying to me, which does happen. So I want a predictable underwriting process with the carriers that I consider to be the best. And last, and I would say least, is pricing. I do think pricing matters. In certain circumstances, it matters a heck of a lot. It's either going to get you the deal or not. So I want to make sure I have a carrier that has a low price leading product that I can undercut the competition and get my client a better deal if all else equal makes sense. So some pro tips. Again, agent ease of use is the most important factor to consider. I used to consider pricing to be the most factor. It's stupid early on in my agency, or even underwriting opportunity, not predictability. And those are big mistakes. Since then, we've used core carriers that are easy to use. Like, for example, American Amicable, best carrier in the final expense space. If you're selling over the phone, especially, that should be your core product. It's just easy. The underwriting is predictable. The pricing is okay, but I don't care. It's easy to use. That's the main thing. And it's predictable. Two most important factors. Okay. And the best carriers you'll find are typically strongest in two of the three factors, and then maybe moderate in the third. So there's never a carrier that does it all. It just doesn't exist. So, for example, AMM is not a winner on pricing. Trinity Family Benefit is a winner on pricing. It used to be hard to use with its verbal application and its underwriting predictability. It's pretty consistent too. So that's gone up. Sika Citizens is another one, easy to use. Underwriting predictability, okay. Pricing is good for the niches it takes, and it has guaranteed acceptance insurance, which is also option. So it's also a good thing too. So make sure in looking for an agency, you ask about what carriers you're going to write. You want to ask which ones are offered. How are the products competitive wise? Like, how do they compare? Are contracts exclusive? So can you carry that product elsewhere? Typically, you can't final expense. So sometimes some term insurance products you can. How often are carriers added? It's a funny thing with us. Like, we rarely add carriers at Dig Agency. Some agencies are product chasers, and what they'll do as soon as the hottest new product comes out, they'll drop everything and write that. But what I have discovered is that new products sometimes are the most vulnerable and the most chaotic. They don't have predictable underwriting. They run into all sorts of problems. They end up beta testing it on the agent, and you end up losing money. You end up getting frustrated. I've seen it time and again. I prefer a stable product that's been consistently on the market. And again, it's easy to use and it's predictable. I don't care if it's new. Carriers, they can win clients, but it's you, the agent, that wins a person over to committing to buy or not. It's not. It's why we don't push Mutual of Omaha. It's why we don't push Gerber. They're there, but we don't push them because they're harder to use. They're more unpredictable. And there's other issues with them too. So the newest carriers aren't necessarily necessary for mature agency, in my opinion. And of course, is there product training provided? Most carriers have product training, of course, but it's good to have like practical agent-based training. Like, we have agent application walkthroughs, super helpful for people to watch them. So don't judge by quantity alone. Quality over numbers. Again, look for, it's not about having 50 million different carriers. Like, 3 to 5 strong carriers is good enough, okay? You want strong carrier relationships that have reliable underwriting, competitive products, great support, and that's going to help you write more of the people that you see. Okay. So some questions in the chat. We're about halfway through. I might go the distance here today. I don't know. I got to ask my wife about the kids. They got camp today here. Let's see here. Okay. Questions in the chat. How much does it cost monthly, if anything, to participate in the free lead program with Dig? So we do have a monthly agent fee. It's $500 a month if you join the free lead program. That pays for the dialer and also onboarding and all that stuff. We do refund that if you can at least make 10 sales in a month, like completed sales that get to the first payment. Not a hard ask, but there is a way to recompensate you for that. Okay. And then if you're face-to-face, it's $500 entry fee and then $99 a month for the CRM, a little bit less because there's less tech involved that we don't have to pass along like we do with free leads. So more info on that, go to daviddufour.com. Watch the video at the top, follow the directions exactly. We explain everything. And as you can tell, what are we in here? What hour are we? It's almost 3 hours into this, guys. Like I explain things in uber depth with an attempt to try to be as clear and coherent and transparent as possible about everything. So when you go there at daviddufour.com, click the link in the chat or the description box, you can find out about how that works. And then we explain everything thoroughly. And if there's questions, we do Q&As daily. You can hop on. There's small groups, ask questions. Very convenient. Okay. So we generate leads via Facebook. So all of our leads come in through Facebook. We're about to test some TV leads. So where we'll run commercials and, Mildred can get coverage for burial and blah, blah, blah. And they call in and then we talk to them. Right. So we're going to test that out. I'm excited about that. That's going to be cool. We also regularly work our active and inactive client list. These are some of the best and easiest sales people have already bought in the past or who need to restart coverage. We always kind of tinker and try things out on a smaller scale, but the core marketing for Dig Agency is through Facebook and will continually be the case. Right? I think I got everything here. Okay. Got more questions? Keep them coming. I'll answer them between presentations here. All right. All right. Question 19. Should I sell insurance full-time or should I sell insurance part-time? So again, both can work. There's not one that's better than the other. Inherently, it comes down to what you want. They can both succeed, but the key thing I would say is just determining the kind of commitment you can do and how important it is to keep the income you're making. Okay. The reason I bring this up, because some agencies will say, hey, you can't be successful unless you're full time and you're all in, and we won't even talk to you unless you're willing to do that. What I found is that leaves like 80% of the agents out there on the table. Like there's a lot of people that want to do the business, but are scared, justifiably so, if they jump in and go all in too soon, that they're going to experience financial devastation because 90% of the people fail in this business. So I'm not sure if going full time is the answer. I think the answer is being smart about how you commit your time and then being fully committed when you make that decision, right? So that's why consistency matters the most. And committing to a schedule, even if you're part-time, does. Okay. So benefits of part-time include lower financial risk. You get to keep what you're making at your current job. So there's bigger, you cover your expenses that way. You learn while you're earning. So there's not this big pressure you got to make your mortgage payment and you got to make a sale today. If you got the job that you're doing full-time doing that and you get to do this part-time, man, it just allows you to learn at a more comfortable pace, to build your confidence, and then eventually transition gradually into full-time. Again, this is what I did. It took me 6 months the first time before I went from part to full-time. And that after I came back the second time when I failed, it took me a year, and I slowed it down intentionally because I did not want to come back or fail out ever again. And I wanted to do it on firm financial footing, which is the big motivation. Benefits of going all in up front, you're forced to do it. There is no plan B. I mean, there is a plan B. You can always do something else, but going all in for some people has this like light a fire under your butt kind of impact. I tend to think that's the minority with most people, to be honest with you. I think it for a lot, it's not the most prudent decision. Okay. But there are benefits: faster skill development, more appointments, more sales opportunities. The fear of failure can be a momentum instigator. The income potential is higher because all you do now is sell, and that can accelerate your career growth. Again, I don't think this is true across the board. I think this is true for some. And that's my story. Again, I started the first time in this business in 2011 part-time with my personal training job. And then I went full-time 6 months in. And then again, after I failed out the second time after 12 months. And again, the key takeaway here is I knew it could be done part-time. And I knew I wanted to do this full-time, but I had to survive the transition. And the first year or two, man, that's the hardest. That's when most agents experience the most dreadful issues with survival in the business. And that's when the decisions are made. Am I going to stick it out or am I going to quit and do something else? So that's why part-time just makes so much more sense, is because all of the issues and the financial risks are much more mitigated and controllable when you're part-time. So choose what fits. Okay, I'm a big advocate of part-time, but full-time's fine. Know your priorities, stay consistent, track your progress, all that stuff. Give yourself 6 to 12 months. It's kind of the general advice. And be nice and kind to yourself, right? Give yourself some time. Eventually, you got to push the bird out of the bird nest, so you can fly on your own. But you don't have to do that after a couple of days or weeks. You know, give yourself some time. Okay, so what traits make someone successful at selling insurance? So success does leave clues in this business, and I've been doing this business for 15 plus years. What I've seen is that it's more of the soft skills and the intrinsic things internally that make the difference, not the what kind of like skills do you have. That's something that can be developed, okay? But it's the soft skills that make the difference and the harder things to train you, just admittedly. Yeah, all I can do is identify them for you, and then you have to realize them. That's really what this comes down to. So, like things like strong work ethic. I've noticed people who do well in this business are first or second generation immigrants. You know, they came here, their mom or dad came from Mexico or Guatemala or somewhere else. And, you know, they had to work their asses off in order to survive and pay and take care of things. And now their kids kind of grew up in that immigrant mentality, and they know what work ethic looks like, or they grew up inside of a restaurant. Dad was always working, mom was always working. Just it's just the nature of things. And having a strong work ethic, it just trumps. It really is the panacea. It mitigates a lot of the problems they have. You can just outwork people. You're ahead of 90% of Americans because most people I don't want to work. I mean, I want to lay around and do nothing, right? But if you can just work because it's just what you do, you just have more opportunity to fix the broken things and do well. So, work. I know you heard it. Your dad or mom said it to you. Now Uncle Dave's saying it to you. So there must be something to it. Okay. Coachable. Look, if you can forego your ego from, getting offended, if you can relegate yourself to humility and let an experienced pro tell you you're being stupid or an idiot in a nice way, of course. But you may take it that way. If you can just like learn how to not take it offensively and then apply what you're being told, keyword apply the coaching, oh man, you're going to be way ahead. If you can just put your brain and what you think should be the way it's done on the back burner and allow yourself to do the way that's proven in the beginning, you can play with stuff later on, tinker, tweak, but do the thing that works. If you can be a good soldier, follow orders and commands, and be coachable, you're well ahead of the curve. Because most people, they're too smart for this, man. I'm going to do it this way. I heard this way's better. Da, 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 da. It's the ego, it's the brain, and then flush goes the toilet of their career. Personal discipline. If you don't need a boss to execute and like follow through on your personal commitments, and you just are good at doing what you say you're going to do without someone holding you accountable, chef's kiss. You're going to go far in this business. A positive mindset. Now, I may want to reanalyze that. You don't want a Debbie Downer mindset or negative mindset. We've recruited those people inadvertently. I tell them to go away. I'm like, I don't want narcissists and assholes because they just bring everybody down. They're like cancer, right? But you don't have to be happy-go-lucky, Ren and Stimpy, you need to have accurate thinking, right? You need to be hopeful, but you don't necessarily have to like think everything's good at the same time. Like you can be honest, like, hey, I suck. But here's the positive mindset. I'm going to be better. And here's the ways I'm going to actually apply myself to get better, right? Does that make sense? So you want to have the positive mindset, but have accurate thinking along with it, okay? And be consistent, right? That goes back to personal discipline, all right? So what's missing from my list? Have you noticed anything, what I didn't talk about on that list? So go look at it again. What's missing from here? Something significant that most people think you got to have. What's that? It's credentials. Y'all don't need a degree. You don't need to have even sold anything before. You don't need the perfect resume. You don't even need a high school diploma. You can get a GED. In most cases, that's all you need to get a license. This is not a credential appreciating business. This is I like insurance sales because it's totally a meritocracy. Who you're from, where you're from. Are you a first generation, second generation immigrant? Are you white? Are you black? Something else? I don't care. Nobody cares. Your clients don't even care. Okay. The vast majority of them don't. What they care is what can you do for them? And the things that help you define what you can do for them is more about your character, and of course, some skills you're going to learn, than the credentials. Okay. And so that's why I lean in heavily to that first slide, because it's really the driving force to when you do meet adversity. Do you have positive mindset, accurate thinking, consistency, personal discipline, strong work ethic? Like, you can have the best script in the world, but if you're just lazy and you're just tired, you want to work, you see what I'm saying? You may know the script, but you don't want to work because you lack the character. So sales experience, extroversion. You don't need sales experience. You can learn this stuff. It's learnable. It's just like learning basketball. Okay. You don't need to be an extrovert. I'm an introvert. I'm a house body. Like, I occasionally go outside. I mean, I'm not that bad. Okay. But I'm not Mr. Extrovert. Like, I'm playing the part on camera because it's nice. Like, the camera doesn't freak me out. What freaks me out is like a group full of 100 people. I've gotten a lot better at that, by the way. Come to my road shows and see. They're really good too. But you don't need to be charismatic. You can be an introvert. What you need to do is care, like people. Okay? Work hard. And you definitely don't need to have a big brain. You don't need to have an IQ. If you feel self-conscious because you feel like you're not as smart as other people, look, that don't matter. Your clients don't care. I've never had one ask what my IQ is or which college I went to or high school I graduated, maybe high school graduated from. But that's not in reference to how intelligent you are. It's just kind of where you're from. That's kind of a different. What matters is, can you help me? Can you fix my problems? That's all that matters. And that's more of a character issue than anything. Okay. So my pro tip is this: your internal character matters exponentially more than how smart or charismatic you are. Don't get caught up with that stuff. Be excited that that's the case and that you can learn what you need to know from a sales standpoint because it's teachable. So thankfully, sales can be learned and talent is not required. You don't need to have talent. It's trainable. Confidence comes. Experience compounds. Mistakes create growth. Practice builds mastery. Okay. And it's the habits that you have and these character traits that beat motivation. In fact, don't think that you got to be motivated. Like, what's going to make me feel motivated? Just as a side note, you don't need to be stimulated into action. Like, if you need something to do something, that's essentially the same thing. Like, I need drugs to feel good. You ever thought about that? Like, you need drugs or alcohol to feel good about yourself. Like, that's bad. It's kind of the same thing with motivation. And I'm not saying, like, drink here, it's fine. A motivational video, okay. But if you need the fix before you can do the thing, that doesn't bode well for you. All right. The secret is to do it even if you don't want to. It's mastery over self. Okay. It's doing it even if you don't want to. And that's a struggle I experience. It's a struggle everybody on some level experience. And generally speaking, the people who can master these like demons with their angels and overcome with the angels are the ones who do well. So what I mean, you don't feel like it, still do your schedule. You don't feel like tracking your numbers, do it anyway. You don't feel like focusing on what you screwed up, do it anyway. Who cares what you think? Who cares what the demon thinks? Do what the angel says to do. Learn continuously, stay accountable. Okay. And focus on becoming better. You got to think like a professional, serve your clients well, embrace feedback, stay resilient. Never stop improving. All right. Scratch my knee here. Hold on one second. All right. Okay. Question 21. What is the not even halfway done? 3 hours. Am I going to go for 6 hours? Good Lord. Hold on one second, guys. Yeah, okay. No, I'm not. The wife says I have to pick up the kids. Can't stay with you all 4 hours. All right. That's all right. Hold on one second. Sure. So maybe we'll get to question 22. 22 by 4. So I got to get out of here in 40 minutes. All right. Bet we could do like 25. We'll get to 25 at least, right? I'm taking bets. Can we get to 25? All right. All right. What is the biggest mistake new insurance agents make? So you're thinking about joining an agency and you're like, I don't want to fail. I've seen enough of Dave's content to know that 90% fail. How can I avoid mistakes? And what are the biggest ones? Let's talk about it. So the common mistake, of course, is quitting too soon. You get in, it's work. Oh no, it's hard. It didn't match the hype. Everybody's driving fast cars and showing off hot watches. I got to sit here and talk to Mildred about her arthritis and get hung up on. That's hard work. I'm going to go back to my day job. This is too hard. I'm going to quit. That's the problem. Quitting too soon is the big thing, okay? So how do you not quit? Well, you're more than halfway there by listening to this question in my broadcast. Because by now, you need to be real. You need to do your due diligence, not have unrealistic expectations, understand that discouragement and frustration are the norm. And you need to self-analyze. Are you being consistent? Are you doing the work? And did you join an agency that actually works? So if you do this now, not after you join, this, like most common mistake, is avoidable completely. So some other common errors include lackadaisical sales prospecting. So lackadaisical means like, I might go a little bit out after lunch and then be done before I pick my kids up at 3 and get about an hour of talking to people. That's not going to cut it, man. You can't make money casually finding and working. You have to treat this like a job. It's kind of the irony is you're not really in a job as an insurance agent in most cases. You're running your own agency. You're straight commission sales rep, but you need to self-discipline your own schedule in place and then follow it and aggressively defend it against everybody that tries to pervade it, right? Very important to do that. Ignore coaching. Again, don't be a Dumbo. Don't, discount what a coach or mentor who's done what you are trying to do successfully. Listen to them and apply it. If you ignore it, failure is imminent. Shacking up with the first agency that sounds good. Big mistake. Big mistake. Just because the hype is there and it sounds great and allegedly everybody's making a ton of money doesn't mean it's true. You need to slow your roll, think a little, and find the agency that actually matches your personal goals. And that process takes work. It's why most people don't do it. They're just led around by emotion. Don't be that way. It's your career we're talking about. You owe it to yourself and your family to not do something stupid, like end up in a bad agency situation, okay? And you probably won't because you're listening to this and you're smart. Shiny object syndrome, what's that? Oh, look at this new product, this new Medicare product. I'm going to sell Medicare because they don't get objections. It's a free insurance policy. Medicare sucks. Well, I'm going to sell mortgage protection because the mortgage protection market's hot. I'm going to go sell that. That's easy sales. Oh, no, actually 6 months later, I'm going to sell annuities. Oh, there's the big sales. Oh, man, I can make $10,000, $15,000 a sale. This is where smart people go to sell. Oh, no, I'm going to go sell Medicare again. See what I just did there? I went through probably 2 years of a person who has an orientation towards stuff that sounds seductive, but they don't have the personal conviction to actually go through it. They're opportunity seekers. I see this. I hate to say this because it doesn't piss some people off, but it's true. I see this in some older men, okay? Like some dudes that join my agency. Like, not all of them do this, but like they're constantly have chased opportunities their whole life. And they're like in their 50s and 60s, and they never made it in anything. But if you looked at what they did, they did like 20 different opportunities, insurance sales, whatever, drop shipping, maybe too old for that, but whatever the opportunity was at the time. But they never did one thing and spend enough time at it to get really, really good. Okay. Y'all don't want to end up like these old dudes. because they had the entrepreneurial interest, but they didn't have the maturity to buckle down, eat shit, and go through the process, the nasty process of getting really good. Okay. So, look, I've been doing this since I've been in business 20 years, 15 of which has been in insurance. There is no such thing as the perfect business. Every business has good things about it, and every business has things that suck. And that's never going to change. And y'all need to get over the fact, or this idea, this romantic, seductive idea that the perfect business is just waiting around the corner, and that you'll jettison it as soon as it becomes evident. That doesn't mean it doesn't mean that a switch is bad per se. It's just that a lot of the people who think like this, the grass is greener, the shiny object syndrome thinkers, they go in this circular process of never getting better. So don't be like that. Think of this as a marriage. You know, if you've ever been married, your spouse is never perfect. Ask my wife. There's good things about your spouse, and there's things that you change if you could. But the marriage that lasts is not the one where the person is perfect. The marriage that lasts is the one where there's mutual respect and an understanding and an acceptance and a toleration. Like the bad side is tolerable, right? So don't be that way in business. You know, think about it as a marriage. What product can you accept to sell that has good, but also an acceptable bad side? And that may be different for those of you watching this. Another issue that causes failure. Oh, this is big. Thinking freedom comes without accountability. Could you imagine thinking freedom that means you can do what you want whenever you want? Like, that is the immature teenager form of freedom. That's what we try to counsel our young people on. It's like, you're getting older. Sure, you can go do some things, but you're being held accountable. You just don't get to have the cake and eat it when you want. So likewise, when you become an insurance agent, guess what you got to do? You have to be accountable. What are you going to be accountable to? Well, now you wake up unemployed every morning. You eat what you kill. And this freedom that comes from being an entrepreneur is actually kind of enslaving. You have to self-enslave to a process and a system. And without the need of a bullwhip at your back or a boss staring you down, you have to do it when nobody's looking. And that's hard, okay, for a lot of people, because that's not the normative process we go through in employment. We do it because we have to, not because we want to. And that's the thing with freedom, is there's a level of accountability to self-disciplining yourself to a process. And a lot of people, they get high and mighty off the idea that I'm free, I can do this whenever I want, and then they don't do nothing, and they end up failing everybody, right? So freedom is a deceptive thing. It has strings attached. Victim complex. This shit doesn't work in entrepreneurship, all right? If you whine and complain, you're just not going to make it, all right? It's better that you just accept that things are going to suck in some form or fashion. Now, that doesn't mean that you're going to sit around and take a bad deal. You obviously don't want to enter into business arrangements where it's not a fair deal, but fair doesn't mean guaranteed success. I tell agents before they join my agency, I can't guarantee you're going to be successful. The minority are. It comes down to stuff that I can't control. I can show you the way and have a system put into place, but you have to execute on it at a high level of skill set. We'll provide that to you as far as the information to do just that and resources, but it's up to you to put it into place, right? So complaining about if you're not getting that, that's different. But if you're complaining that the people hang up on me, they treat me bad, or this is hard, just shut up. This ain't for you. And I'm trying to be nice about it. Really am. Entrepreneurship is ugly work. It really is. It's tough work. It's the accountability and to the system that's really tough. And there's no room to whine and complain. Keep your head down and go back to work. Understand things are hard, and it's better just to keep dialing and keep prospecting, because guess what? You're going to hear somebody who actually appreciates and respects you and wants to buy. But spending time complaining and spending your efforts trying to exhaust your victimhood it's stupid. It's a waste of time. Buying working poor leads is another thing, right? So if you're in this business of thinking a lead is a lead is a lead, buying a lead, it doesn't matter where it comes from, you get the cheapest kind of lead, you're probably gonna have the worst kind of results. Okay. And if in just trying any kind of lead without vetting them, without cross-referencing from people you know, like, and trust that actually are good, and you're led by price, you're probably not going to do very well. Okay. So be very careful when it comes to the lead buying process. You want to make sure you stick with the better quality leads. So, what do successful agents do? First of all, they have better habits. They stay consistent. They know failures are opportunities to learn from, to improve. So, they can improve daily. They like tracking performance, and they keep selling even when things get hard. There is a paradox in this business. The most successful agent hears no more than they hear yes, and they hear no more than you do as a neophyte. Why? Because they're absolutely scaled into their system, working it as hard as possible, and in a place where, because of that paradox, they're going to hear no by design, but they hear yes more than you because they stick with it long enough and have developed their skill sets, of course, successfully. All right. How important is insurance agency company culture? So as you look at an agency, maybe one of the questions you're asking is going to be like, how should I rate or consider company culture? Does it matter? Is there toxic culture? Is there a mismatch potential for culture? Let's dig into this a little bit different because it may surprise you. So culture does matter. Okay. And I would say probably more accurately, the wrong type of culture is the thing that can kill an agent from having a successful career. But the right kind of culture, or a neutral culture, I guess you could say, is going to help you set expectations, like what this business is about, what are you going to experience. It's going to help shape your experience of being an agent. It's going to impact your level of motivation, your mindset, your retention, and your overall long-term success. So culture in that sense does matter. Okay. Signs of a great culture include things like helpful leadership. You should be able to access coaching, getting help when you need it, collaboration. Maybe you need to get a deal sold and there's a collaborative effort to help you do that, or just to cheer you along. Open communication. A good culture allows agents to ask questions, encourages it, and then facilitates that response to help them out as well as others. There's positive level of accountability, not the kind of like toxic nastiness. That's usually never good for anybody. And there's a shared value system of helping people be successful, and kind of an all-in attitude about the progression of everybody. Now, there are, again, the thing here is, on some level, I don't think I talk about this in the slides, but I'll talk about it now. Um, at the end of the day, you got to go to work. You got to sell. You got to make things happen. Your personal culture, your character, is the leading indicator of your success or failure. Okay. And a company culture does matter, but you don't have to have this kind of, like, when I think of culture, I think of like this much ballyhooed, we're a family and everybody loves each other, and we don't ever do anything separate from each other. I think that's kind of fantastical, and they eventually break down, and there's inner politics and turmoil, and I don't believe in that. I don't think that's necessarily the idea. It's not necessarily bad. It's just not necessarily ideal either. Um, a culture that facilitates you being able to be successful is the ideal. That's the kind of thing that we want. And I believe that's more focused on mentorship, coaching, success, open capability to communicate. But it's not as necessarily you're a family in that sense that you hear a lot of in the corporate world. Okay. But what you absolutely want to be aware of are the warning signs of bad culture. Okay. So this is like things like constant negativity, right? So these are company cultures where people are disrespected, that, like the agents, like they are talked down to, they're laughed at, they're screamed at, cursed at. They're not held with a level of respect. Okay. It doesn't mean you're not going to be called out for some nonsense. or that you can do no wrong. But there should be a level of professionalism that even in adversity should be evident. It doesn't just because something's not going right and you need to be corrected means that you can be a jerk. You want to avoid that. Little support. To me, that's a bad culture, especially as a new person. You should have support. It's very important if you want to be successful. Internal politics. This happens a lot. I don't see it that much. It's funny in my organization, like we're hardcore meritocracy. It's like, come in, come sell, do as much as you can, hit the goals, and then you live your life how you want to. We're not going to babysit you. I'm not going to dial you up and talk to you for an hour. Like, come in, work, and then live your life. That's what I want. I want you to be happy. Okay. But we're not, I don't pretend. We're not sitting around like we're a big family and we're hanging out. We do events together. We hang out occasionally, but like we want you to have your life, right? That's why we do this, right? Freedom and autonomy. But we don't have a lot of internal politics, but it is a real big thing in a lot of different organizations, like competing factions, competing egos. And look, so much of your time can get caught up and wasted in that crap. And it's so important to separate yourself from that. You probably have experienced that if you worked in the corporate world. Maybe you haven't. If you haven't, you're lucky. But find agencies where it's like that doesn't exist. They're out there. I know they exist because we're like that. And then toxic competition. Just again, it goes from being like fun to just being miserable. Okay. Look out for that. And like I said, a good agency is essentially the Sherpa. You know what the Sherpa is, right? Like that's the guide at the base of the Himalayas that shows the climber, you got to go this way during this season. But if you see this, watch out because there's going to be snow cover and you may need to hunker down. They show you the path up the mountain. No matter what agency you join, nasty, toxic culture, neutral, family culture, whatever, you're still going to have to climb the mountain yourself. It's your responsibility to be successful. In fact, one of the things that I say all the time is that I am responsible. I'm responsible for everything in my life. Doesn't mean I'm a victim. It doesn't mean that I couldn't be a victim. Something could happen to me that's not my fault, right? Like my brother got hit by a crazy driver. It was not his fault. But he's responsible for what he does after the fact, how he looks at it, how he recovers, how he handles himself in that situation, right? Easier said than done, of course. But by telling ourselves I'm responsible, it's empowering. It allows the victim mentality that tries to, enter our minds to be discluded. So be fully responsible yourself. And it's true. You're fully responsible for your success. And that means things like good culture doesn't mean you have to be babysat. Like I actually read this somewhere. I think it was doing ChatGPT or something. And ChatGPT made a good point. I think it said like good mentorships eventually make themselves less necessary. And that's true. As you go through your career, you shouldn't feel like your mentor has to constantly talk to you or babysit you. You should need a mentor less and less as you personally develop. But in the beginning, it's very important. So don't feel like you have to be constantly babysat. That's not a good culture. You still have to climb the mountain. And like I said, you're always going to be 100% accountable. Okay. All right, question 23. What about those insurance contracts? What should I be concerned with? So you're looking at joining an agency and they push a contract in front of you. It's got a bunch of legalese on it. How concerned should you be? Little, lot? What should you look out for? Let's talk about some basics here. Very important to understand what to look for and to be concerned with when joining an agency. So first of all, never join an agency that pushes you into joining without first a review of the contract. There should be no expiration date as to the time it takes you to review and decide if the contract makes sense. Okay. Like it's your career, man. Like you're not joining an agency just to have fun. You're there to make money. And by doing that, you're not doing something else. There's an opportunity cost. You could be in your former career where you could make money predictably, but now you're in this one where you may not. So how the contract reads is very important. And what you got to do is understand what you're signing up for, what the pros are, what the drawbacks are. Every contract has things that are drawbacks. You need to know that and decide if it's acceptable to you. As a general pro tip, this stuff should be generally made available and understood before you sign. I try to make it a practice to discuss through my Q&A calls and my overview video about working with Dig Agency, what is entailed when you join, like how commissions work, how ownership of the book works, etc. So that way there's no surprises. I'm not 100% perfect, nobody is, but there should be some active engagement because I think it's a sign of respect. And my opinion is I don't want somebody to join to get like, flabbergasted at something they weren't prepared for and feel like they're being taken advantage of, right? Because I look at every relationship we enter into as a long-term one for many, many, many years. Some won't turn out that way, but some will. And it starts with that kind of mentality. It's good for business. It's good just for personal relationships, for full transparency. So always do the following. Know what you're signing before you do it. Consider independent counsel. Maybe have a lawyer review it. Understand what obligations you have. If there's anything that you're concerned about, ask, hey, what does this mean? The company should answer it in a way that's transparent, honest, and not full of snark or contempt. If you get snark or contempt, they're hiding something. Go somewhere else. Feel free to ask questions. Never assume anything either. Okay, it's okay. It's okay to ask questions. It's hard to, but this is somebody who has a contract that I have people sign. It's completely fine to ask questions. Okay, it's totally okay. I appreciate when people do. So where should you be reviewing? Like, what are some key points to keep in mind specific to the insurance business that you may want to concern yourself with? Well, first of all, commission structure. Obviously, you should know what comp levels you're getting, comp, commission, interchangeable terminology, what your commission structure looks like. It should be clear, should be listed in the contract. Now, sometimes it's included in the carrier contract, but that should be 100% clear from the beginning. And then make sure once you're appointed, if you're appointed to a carrier directly, to request the carrier commission contract to make sure it matches what's in the actual contract. Okay. Also, vesting rules. Now, what's vesting? Vesting means who owns the book of business. This is more of a concern if you're buying leads, in my opinion. That's, to me, that's the pivot point, the trigger point. Vesting, the person buying leads should own the book because they're taking the biggest significant risk. If you're in a free lead program, it's very common you will not own the book of business. It just doesn't make sense for the amount of risk that the carrier, or I should say the agency, is making. But if you're buying leads, you should own the book. The contract should say it on the carrier level, and it should also say it as well if there's a agency to agent contract as well. So carriers will have their own separate contract in many cases, in addition to the agency contract that you'll sign. But if you pay for leads, you should own the book. Carrier contracts, make sure to review those too as well. You can typically, if you're in the life insurance side, you're usually doing Assurance Bay, and you can review the contract before you submit. So that's convenient. Also ask about release policies. So what's a release? A release is where you are allowed to move one carrier or a carrier or selection of carriers from one agency to another. So let's say you're with Joe Blow's MLM. You're watching my FAQ content. You're like, Dave's amazing. Obviously, of course I am. And you want to join Dig Agency. But you have some of the carriers currently with Joe Blow that we use. You're going to have to ask him in most cases for release. But he may not have to release them. In fact, you're not required to. That's what's crazy. You have to sit out 6 months with most carriers. With Medicare, maybe a little bit shorter. There's some other workarounds there. But the point is, before you get involved with an agency, know what the release provisions are. It's like, for example, with my company, we release agents as long as they don't owe us chargeback debt or other forms of debt like elite debt. So then we'll release them. They can go where they want. Completely fine. But if it's not in writing, it means they can do what they want. That's how to interpret it. So ask about that. And you should, I believe, you should be able to be released as soon as there's no debt. And if they say, well, yeah, the carriers, they decide they can't release you after 6 months, that's BS. They can release you sooner if there's no debt. And then termination clauses. Okay, so just like what would cause a termination? What does it mean for you if you get terminated? That kind of thing. But the main things here are vesting rules and release policies, and definitely commission. Okay. So again, don't guess. Request explanations. Get answers in writing. review all the documents, take your time, and then, feel good about making a decision. Don't rush into it. All right. So smart agents, they protect their future. Basically, same stuff we said. All right. Question 24. I think I'm going to do it. So how much support should I expect as a new agent? So this purpose of this question is to help you answer like what your expectations should be with support. Is there too much? Is there too little? Like what's the perfect mix? Because let's face it, you have to do work too. You can't expect somebody to just do it all. This is a process that's agent led and agent focused for sure. So you do have some responsibilities, but support does make a difference because it helps you learn faster, overcome the common issues to build confidence so you can produce fewer mistakes, hopefully have higher production and better retention. So here's what I'd be looking at when it comes to good support. So things like accessible mentors. You should have mentors that hopefully have had experience selling the product, that are readily available multiple times a week, one-on-one, group Q&A, whatever. There needs to be some kind of availability where you can ask questions and get immediate answers. That includes live coaching as well, whether that's personal or in a group session. Technical help, also very important too. So where this is going to be most valuable is in submitting an application. A lot of people get stuck on submitting the first couple of applications, and having help can mean either getting the sale or not. And I'm sure that's even happened today at Dig Agency. Some new guys like, I can't submit this app. What's up? Then Richard or Gloria comes in. They're like, hey, do this, and then you'll be fine. Sales feedback. You should be able to submit a sales call or submit a portion and get some idea of what you did right and what you can improve. The best way to get better is by listening to your calls and having pros listen to them. And there should be ongoing education. Again, a lot of this business ultimately is about the fundamentals. You always want to be sharpening your saw, always be working at the fundamentals, always be thinking about how you can get better. That is the most important. There's at some point, how much better do you get? I don't know. Or how much new information do you need? That's totally new in this kind of business, not so much, but maybe Medicare, get some ongoing product information there. That's important. Changes in Medicare for sure. So it's going to be niche dependent, but the fundamentals and living and relearning the fundamentals over and over, that's actually probably the most valuable training you can get. Okay. All right. Yes, we already did this slide. So ask before joining. Who helps new agents specifically? Are they people with experience? How quickly do they get to ask questions? What kind of ongoing coaching is there? Are there regular meetings? Is support proactive? Do I have to like wait for somebody to show up? Or do they reach out? Like, what's the deal? And then another thing I would absolutely ask too is, as you consider joining an agent, ask to speak to an agent. Okay. So remember, agencies, and I'll use myself as an example. Somebody promoting an agency is probably a really good salesperson because they survived long enough to build an agency. And they tend to be the most charismatic and the best at selling an opportunity. Okay. And it sounds so funny saying this because if you watch my content, I'm very detailed and transparent, but you want to trust but verify. And there's nothing personal, it's just business. So if anybody claims that they're the best or we write this much business, where are the case studies and the testimonials and the personal contact to verify the claim? It is not inappropriate to ask, hey, everything sounds good. Is there a way I could speak to an agent? Can you give me a couple of names? Maybe I could just send them a few questions. And if anything, it's just to check how their response is. I talked about the snark and the contempt they may have by asking that, like, how dare you? That's enough to say, I would say, no, don't join that opportunity because they're going to treat you like that. That's like a valid question. But even the response, if it's positive, hey, here you go. I don't know if you're going to reach out to them. They're super busy, but definitely give it a try. That's good. And then also here's some testimonials or case studies. Those are the things that are positive indications that they're not afraid to broach sometimes a touchy subject with some agencies, which is like, are you sure that's true? Okay, and this will be our last one for the day, and then I'll finish up. Maybe I'll do tomorrow. Maybe I'll do the rest of these 20 questions tomorrow. All right. How do you build a long-term career in insurance? So you're joining an agency, and maybe you're like, well, I'm going to start with final expense, but I don't necessarily want to do that forever. I've heard about Medicare and passive income, or maybe selling annuities or healthcare. Like, what does a career look like, and how do you build one long term, not just getting started? Okay. And first of all, as a new agent, you should absolutely be thinking about this. Okay. You want to stay in this business, you want to thrive, you want to build a long term career because it has everything, it has the fixins for an incredible long term career. You have the ability to have an unlimited income. In an earlier question, I explained how I know a personal friend who made 40 to 50 million selling his agency recently, and he started 15 years ago. I know agencies that make seven figures, agents that make seven figures, six figures, five figures. We want six to seven figures, of course, but the income has a huge upside potential. Okay. In a lot of different niches, which then provide a flexible lifestyle, true business ownership, long-term stability, and a scalable opportunity. So the career opportunity is there. It's how do you build it in such a way that you can take advantage of some of the unique benefits that the business provides. So there's a couple of different career paths beyond just entry level sales. So let's talk about a little bit of that. And your agency should have a pathway to getting to some, maybe not all of these, but some of these. And I'll kind of talk about what we do just as a relationship here. So obviously personal production. Every agency opportunity should start with personal production and selling insurance. Okay, that's a non-starter. Team leadership. So maybe you have an opportunity, you desire to build an agency. So like we allow for that, but only after somebody actually knows what they're doing and has success. So by building an agency and having team leadership, that may be you have a mentorship position and you earn a commission off of every sale. Maybe you agency build, you start building a sub agency within my company, or maybe you're with another company, you build a sub agency and then you put underneath people underneath you, make an override. So that involves recruiting, or maybe you don't even get into leadership or agency building position at all, and you move into specialized markets. So maybe instead of expanding into recruiting, you expand into another product like Medicare or health insurance or annuities. You go up market and you start to add additional income through personal production that's either renewal based or higher income based. Okay. So this is my career arc, just to kind of explain to you what it's looked like for me to see it in live action. And you can kind of see historically by timeline where I made these major decisions on how to change my career. So first of all, I got involved in 2011 out of desperation, looking for something to do outside of personal training. I had ups and downs, failed once, came back. And in 2013, about 2.5 years in, I formed my first final expense life insurance agency, Final Expense Agent Mentor. I actually see old videos where you see the Final Expense Agent Mentor logo design. And then through that period of time, I constantly train agents while working full time. I didn't want to give up full time personal production, so I did both, and regularly recruited agents into my agency. And then when 17 and 18 hit, the business took off. I don't know if just YouTube started ranking better or there was just more interest in life insurance sales, but I aggressively began to scale recruiting even higher and much more volume than original, and was able to move my part-time or my work down to a part-time basis again, just because I had so many responsibilities building. The crazy thing is that COVID hit and we actually scaled tremendously faster. And I made way more money during COVID than I ever did in my entire career, and worked my way out of part-time business altogether and just was managing final expense. We had added at the time, since then taken away, possibly looking to add back Medicare health insurance, and then also added in remote sales. And then I realized by 2023, I actually got kind of high on some Alex Ramosi content about scaling and building a sales organization. I realized that the future of where I was with my knowledge base and understanding the agent population was building a free lead organization. And so I decided at the end of 2023 to take this kind of like scratch, simple agency, which was doing very well, and then take the savings and knowledge base and then build a team out to help develop my free lead agency, which is where we're at here at the filming in 2026. It's doing wonderfully well, better than ever. Like everything, there's been ups and downs. But my strategy took me more along the lines of, again, basic team building to professional sales organization over the last 15 years. And look, you don't have to make these kind of transitions in your career and what your career arc looks like. This is just what mine looked like. Some people get into Medicare after a year or two and they really work that Medicare business, and then they scale the Medicare part by hiring downline agents or staff to help front calls. Maybe they move from face to face to telesales or vice versa. So, and then they move into that range because Medicare offers great residual income. Okay. And that's how it looks. So the career's a great opportunity. And there's so much opportunity here, guys. That's why thriving comes later, and surviving is really important. And if I knew what I knew now when I started, where I would be, I wouldn't believe it. I would not believe it. It's an absolute incredible business. And guys, I'm going to go ahead and end this obviously amazing training right here. And again, I thought this would take an hour and a half. I'm 3 hours and 40 minutes in. As you can tell, I love doing this. I love it. And I have so much to say, so much to try to help you with. And I'm going to continue this either Thursday or Friday. I've got a ton of other videos to film. Thankfully, they're kind of on a lower volume side. So I'll probably finish this and do the other 20 questions later. So thank you very much for listening. I hope you enjoyed today's training. You got a lot of value out of it and it helped you out. And we'll see y'all next time.